little bit of problems too. Are you using the link that is on the city's website?
That's what we're trying to do.
Okay. It should take you to a generic Zoom link, a Zoom sign-in sheet. You then have to put in the meeting ID and then your personal ID, both of which are found in the city calendar under today's PC meeting.
Okay, so I have to put in what first?
The easiest thing to do is go to the city's website.
Yeah, we've been to the city calendar.
Okay. Under today, for the Planning Commission meeting, if you click on that, it'll give you a Zoom. Wait. I'm sorry. I'm leading you down the wrong path. Help me out, Anton. Where is the ID, meeting ID?
We have the meeting ID.
You can click on the link in the agenda. So if you have the agenda PDF that I sent, you can just click on the link and it should take you right there. That might be the easiest way.
Yeah, thanks.
And Diane, I just resent that to your email.
This is getting more confusing every meeting. And I know the website's been out of it, but I can't get on. We'll go back to the calendar and see if we can do that. Otherwise, Trevor, you think I should go to the Gmail? Your Gmail or Anton's?
Yeah, if you can pull up the PDF of the packet I sent, you can click on the link in the agenda.
Oh, I think I already. Okay, well, we'll try this. We'll see.
Hey, Diane, this is Aaron. I'm not sure if you heard, but I just re-forwarded the email from Trevor to your Gmail, so it should be there for you to click on.
Okay, let's see. No, it's not there yet. I just have the additional comments from Anton. That's all I've got.
Look at your Gmail account.
Yeah, we are. We're on my Gmail account.
Okay.
Yeah, and you sent it to my personal account, Aaron?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so it hasn't come in. Is that it? There's nothing there. We could try that. Okay, nothing there. All right, we'll go back to the calendar, or you can just start the meeting. And oh, it just came in, he said. Okay, so what do we check on? The packet? Yeah, we've got all that.
I just sent you an email with the link in it too, to your Gmail.
Okay, well, I think we got it finally.
What a nightmare. Okay. So I'm going to
hang up and I'll be on here.
Such a big deal.
Shut up. Do that.
I think you're almost there, Diane. I see, it looks like you're logged on. But I don't see any video yet. Okay, very good. Sorry about all of that confusion, folks. But let's begin the meeting. Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Trinidad Planning Commission for August 17th, 2022. First item on our agenda is the roll call. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Heikkinen.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
And Commissioner Stockness.
Present.
Okay, we're all here. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate it. Appreciate your participation tonight. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes for approval from last meeting, July 20th. I'll ask the commissioners, do you have any questions, comments, corrections, et cetera, to the minutes? They're fairly lengthy, but if you have any questions or corrections, please let me know. Okay, hearing none, seeing none. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, I had one.
Sorry.
I had one. I wonder, Trevor, did you ask the Coastal Commission if they would come up here?
Well, I mean, I can't, they do come up here as often as they can. So I can't request a special trip for the actual commission. We could get staff.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant, staff, because I know staff went to a Humboldt Planning Commission permit site. And that was within a month ago. So I know some of the staff went up there. So that's why I was curious if you could get them, because this whole view thing is going to be, it's an issue.
So yeah, so I mean, if you want to try and arrange a special planning commission meeting on site, or if you just want it to be staff, maybe we can talk about that as future agenda items.
Okay, that'll
or
be
if there's
great.
a particular project, but yes, we could get
Okay.
staff on site or at a meeting.
Thank you. That was my comment, Richard.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, corrections? All right, hearing or seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, moved and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand by affirmation.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. We have 4 items for public hearing, discussion, decision, and action this evening. Any changes requested to the agenda?
Request just to swap items 2 and 1. Just given the amount of presence on this call, I think there's a lot of interest in item number 2.
I have no problem with that. Any further commissioner discussion? Diane?
I don't think 1 is going to take that long. It's just talk about the meeting, having meetings.
That is true.
So let's give it 5 minutes and then we'll move on to number 2.
Aaron,
We
is that
can
okay
have
with you?
Anton time
Absolutely
us.
fine. Yep.
Okay.
Give it a shot.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, your motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
I'm sorry, you
second.
mean the agenda?
With the
Excuse
agenda,
me, yeah, the agenda, sorry.
I thought so.
I'll second it.
Moving second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye or raise your hand for affirmation.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda very quickly is items from the floor. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public, member of the public, to raise an issue with the Planning Commission or talk to the Planning Commission. We request that any items that you want to discuss are not items on the agenda this evening. And we would request that you limit your discussion to 3 minutes. Are there any items from the floor at this time? If you could raise your hand or use your little hand button. Okay, I'm not seeing any I'm not seeing anyone from the public for items from the floor. Okay, moving on then to our next item, which is our agenda items. The first item on our agenda is the meeting format preference. This is a discussion regarding returning to in-person hybrid meetings. And it was requested that we limit this to a 5-minute discussion. I'll try to do my best to keep it moving very quickly. Real quickly, Trevor, staff report, please.
Yeah, so the planning commission requested a little bit of additional information on how the city council meetings are going in the hybrid format. Commissioner Johnson offered to talk to the city manager about that, which he did. And so I provided the information that came back from that. The city council has not had an additional meeting since we last met. But so far their meetings have gone fairly smoothly. The city manager and the mayor pro tem discussed meeting formats in general and decided that hybrid meetings would be supported for the planning commission and city council, but not the committees, because it takes a little bit more staff time and effort to run the equipment and that sort of thing for a hybrid meeting. But they did suggest that the planning commission go ahead and try it at least for a couple of meetings and then revisit the issue and see how it goes. So I think that is sound advice.
Thank you. Any comments from the planning commissioners? I would just like to add, Diane.
Go ahead, Richard.
I would just like to ask, I concur. I think it makes sense to at least try this for 2 meetings. And I appreciate the support from the city manager and from the mayor and mayor pro tem in helping us out here. One question I had was just very quickly, if we decided to do this starting at the next meeting, how many commissioners would be attending in person versus those who might want to be online? I see 1, 2. Tom, how do you feel?
Sorry, next meeting would be on the 21st. I'm out of town anyway, so I'd be on Zoom.
Okay. All right. Well, this might be a good
If I
experiment.
can even.
Okay, thank you. That might be a good experiment. I think, Aaron, I saw your hand go up that you were going to be here.
Yeah, 21st is more likely. So yeah, I should be here for the 21st in person.
Okay. Very good. So I don't think we need, I think we have a concurrence that we'll try it for 2 meetings. I don't think we need a motion for this. It's just been just an agreement that we will try this and try it for 2 meetings and then revisit the issue to determine what our formal format preference might be.
Commissioner Johnson, I don't usually speak up like this, but I'd like to let you know and let all the commissioners know that I most likely will not be able to attend that meeting on September 20th, just to let you know.
Okay, so thanks. I appreciate that. So what does that mean in terms of our ability to support a hybrid meeting?
Well, it would probably not run as smoothly, but maybe we could have Gabe jump in and run the meeting. I'd have to run that by him.
Okay.
Anton, this is Eli. You said the 20th. Did you mean the 21st? Because the next meeting is the 21st.
Then yes, I could probably run it remotely, but I wouldn't be able to be there physically because of a upcoming surgery.
Okay. So
I wanted to let you know.
thank you. I appreciate that. I think at this point, well, let's coordinate with the city clerk and see if we can get support. And if so, then let's proceed. If it looks like it's going to get more complicated, we can postpone this for another month. But we'll at least we have an agreement. We would like to try it for 2 meetings. Whether we start in September or October is still to be determined. Diane.
One's going to be vegetarian and one's going to be
I don't know what that was.
I,
Anyway, Eli, would you be able to be there at that meeting to kind of guide us also?
Yeah, I can be present.
okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. All right, so I think we've allocated our 5 minutes, and I think we have a recommendation. So we can proceed. Okay. The next item on our agenda is item number 2, Vanderpool 2021-10, design review and coastal development permit to construct several additions to an existing 1,652 square foot residence. Staff report, please, from Trevor.
Sure, thank you. So the various additions are described in the staff report as well as on the plans that have been submitted. I also understand that the architect has a presentation that he will be giving you. So there's a variety of additions around the house to make it more livable for the Vanderpools. It does include an extension to the west for a new office and bathroom, as well as an extension up for a crow's nest. So those are probably of the most interest to people. The house is an existing 3-bedroom house. They're not adding any bedrooms, so the existing septic system does not need to be expanded. It does look like the house built in around 1979 there were some modifications made to the original design to protect views. So that's probably the biggest issue that we're going to discuss tonight. Overall, the house, meets setbacks on maximum height requirements. It's not in an area where slope stability is an issue or any issues like that. So views are going to be the biggest issue tonight. So I'll focus on that a little bit. The house is going to be a little over 2,000 square feet, and there is a guideline limiting houses to 2,000 square feet unless they're sited and designed in such a way to not be obtrusive. So that'll be one of the findings you'll be looking at. The design guidelines also protect views, coastal views from public places as well as from residences located behind the structure. And so you'll have to look at those findings. It does guarantee a minimum of 15 feet and 1,500 square feet for residents, even if views are blocked. In this case, the house is already above that. The crow's nest addition will extend the height by about 4 feet, a little 4.5 feet above the existing ridge line. Parking isn't going to change. There's some changes to walkways and minor changes like that. Minor grading is required for the project. So as you know, the existing design guidelines don't provide a whole lot of guidance for determining whether a view is significantly blocked. We have been discussing new design guidelines, and I think all those considerations we've discussed and talked about, you can use in order to whether to make the findings for this project. We also have some additional criteria in our views and vegetation ordinance that were discussed by the Planning Commission in the past, and they are codified in the views and vegetation ordinance and proposed to be in the new guidelines. And that looks a little bit, it's not objective criteria, but it still provides a little bit more guidance in terms of the type of view that's being blocked. So important landmarks are a consideration. The location from where a view is blocked, so that'll be part of the discussion tonight. And then also what is the importance of the addition to the applicants and the need for the addition. So that can be a consideration as well, whether there are alternatives for the applicant to get the similar benefits without maybe blocking views. So that will all be part of the discussion tonight. As you know, I usually write the findings in a manner to allow approval of a project if it meets the objective standards of the zoning ordinance, which again, this does. In this case, though, design review finding C, I have not written a finding because I know that there are view issues. So that's really the key, is view protection finding C is the one that you're going to have to think about probably the most. There's also view protection finding B, which addresses public views. So the Coastal Act protects public views, but not private views. And so there are some views from Underwood. And so, thinking about whether those views are significantly impacted can be another consideration that you discussed tonight. So the staff recommendation is that if you find that coastal views are not significantly blocked, then the project can be found to be consistent with the city's local coastal program and other applicable regulations and general plan policies. And so there is a motion in there for approval. But as usual, you have other alternatives as well. So you can add conditions to the project to address any concerns that are brought up during the meeting. You can continue the hearing to next month to either request additional information or request design changes, for example, or you can deny the project if you feel that the findings can't be made and that there aren't changes to the project that can be made. So I did provide you with a couple of sample motions for those options if you want to go in that direction. And then in terms of conditions of approval, those are all pretty standard. The applicant has to reimburse the city for all the costs. The design review approval is for 2 years. And they have to vest that by applying for a building permit within those 2 years or request an extension from the Planning Commission. There are erosion control measures in there, deed restriction limiting the house to three bedrooms and a single unit. The applicants did submit a new inspection report because we're looking at the OWTS program. So I reviewed the septic system under the city's OWTS program, and it does need pumping, so they will need to submit proof of pumping prior to getting building permits, and the leach field will need to be protected during construction, and then building inspector requirements will have to be met. And I will mention that referrals were sent to a city engineer, building official, health department, as well as the tribal entities, and no comments or concerns were received at this time. So, and then in the packet, you have plans from the architect as well as some public comments that were submitted prior to the packet going out. And then you've also received some additional public comments that came in after the packet. And I think that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Before we get into the questions or clarifications from the commission, I just want to do a couple of quick process actions. There has been a fair amount of activity on visiting the applicant site, and I just want to give each commissioner an opportunity to discuss any ex parte disclosures that you might have. And then I also would just like to get an idea of, from the applicant, we want to give everyone an opportunity to speak, but we usually allow a little bit of latitude for the applicant or the agent to provide a little bit longer presentation. So I would like to kind of get a feel for what the applicant feels would be in a reasonable amount of time. Usually we leave about 10 minutes, but we can negotiate that if we need to. So let's start with the ex parte. Diane?
Okay, so Friday the 12th, about 7:30, I went to Chuck and Sherry Vanderpool's home, and they saw me looking around. They invited me in, so I walked in, walked out on the deck. I did not go upstairs. I did not go in the garage. I just kind of got a feeling, for the whole space. On Saturday the 13th, I saw Richard in the parking lot at Murphy's, and I think it was like 1 minute, Richard, that I made a comment with you. It was either Saturday or Sunday. I can't quite
Sunday.
remember, but it was under a minute. And I have received 5 phone calls from community members about this project. Okay, that's all I have to say right now. And I've been here long enough to see that house being built in its original state on Underwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron?
So I took the opportunity to visit both Jonathan Block and Carrie Varella's home, as well as the Slay's home, and met with both of them. Spent about 45 minutes at each home, listening to their points of view and physically seeing from there. And then I too have received, I want to say it's 4 or 5 texts and street side conversations with residents of the community as well on the topic. That's it.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Tristan?
Yeah, this past Sunday, I went to the home of Jonathan and Carrie and saw the story poles on top of the Vanderpool's house and listened to their points of view with regard to the view from their home. And that was the extent.
Thank you. Tom?
So just to tell you, I did not go visit, but I've read everything, and I've drove the street a couple of times looking at it from various angles. I got out and walked it once. So that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, thank you. I too visited the 708 Underwood property, just across the street from the Vanderpools, and was inside, took some photographs, got an idea of some of the issues. And so we've done our homework, and thank you very much. I would also like to also state that just to be on the safe side, I consulted with the city attorney regarding a potential conflict of interest issue regarding interactions with certain individuals involved in this application. However, based on that conversation with the city attorney, I believe that there is no conflict, economic or otherwise, and that I can serve fairly and impartially in this manner. And I believe that the city attorney would agree with that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was publicly noted. So at this point, we typically look for questions or comments from the commissioners for staff. But I'd like to maybe modify that just very slightly, in that it probably makes more sense if we could hear from the applicant or the agent of the applicant first, to get a feel for what they might want to present, and then we will come back to the commission and then ask for questions, clarifications, etc. So I see, Mr. Berger, are you going to be the presenter tonight?
Yes. Hi. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, Julian Berg, and I do have a fairly short PowerPoint presentation to do. I expect it to be around 10 minutes. That should be okay. Should I go ahead and start in?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little new to doing PowerPoint and Zoom at the same time, but I think this will work. Do you have to allow me to share the screen?
Yes.
Let's see. For some reason, I'm not seeing PowerPoint pop up. Let me just-
I just clicked that for you.
Oh, okay. All right, let me try this again. Yeah, for some reason, it's not showing up when I hit on share screen. Slides. Oh, okay. Bear with me here. I may have. Yes, I have PowerPoint open and it's not coming up as a way, as something I can share.
Hmm.
Yeah, I see that
But
this
I-
seems to be an issue with this right now. I'm trying to troubleshoot it.
I made the presentation as a PDF in case we had an issue. So I can scroll through my PDFs. Would that help?
Either format, as long as we can get it.
Yeah, it's just not showing up, which is, this is the first time that's happened. That no,
There you are.
stop share. Oh, okay.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Boy, this is strange. There's got to be some setting on your end that is not allowing me to share it.
It popped up briefly. I don't know if anybody else saw that. I saw your desktop
Yeah.
pop up, Julian.
You
Well,
should
that was just,
be able to share now.
okay.
You share your desktop, and then I believe whatever you pull up on your desktop, we'll be able to see.
Oh, I see. Okay. I gotcha. So are you able to see my desktop now?
Yes.
How's this?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So thanks everyone for allowing us to make this presentation tonight. Many of you already know me. I'm Julian Berg, the architect working with the Vanderpoels on this project. And we've been working for some time on it. With COVID and everything, it took a little 2-year break. And first, I did want to say I've really enjoyed working with Trevor over the years. We're really lucky to have her. She's always been a pleasure. And so also, many of you know I was born and raised here in Humboldt, and I've been practicing here for over 20 years doing architecture. And I care deeply about the area and its future. And I really try to have that show up in the quality of the designs I do and the level of detail that goes into it. So I hope you see that in tonight's presentation. The Vanderpool family have been some of the most caring and understanding people that I've ever worked with, to be honest, over the years. They've just been great to work with, and they really care about this area just as much as I do. They have 2 successful businesses in the town of Trinidad, which, of course, you know, Hetty's Pizza and Poor Lighthouse Cafe, and they've become a big part of the fabric of Trinidad, built through lots of hard work and dedication. In fact, whenever I'm up north, they're 2 of my daughter's favorite restaurants to go to. So let's go to the next slide. So I wanted to start out by going through some of the existing houses in the neighborhood that have been extensively remodeled over the years and improved. There's 586 Hector Avenue with Sharon and David Winnett. 692 Underwood Drive, Holly, Chris, and Chuck Slay. I want you to pay attention to the height of it and the fact that they've been extensively remodeled with decks around, new windows, doors, siding. And then here directly across the street, we have 708 Underwood with Carrie and Jonathan. And below that, 732 Underwood with Gail Becker. And then further down the street at 811, we have Mary Jane and Cliff Polton. This house has a nice craftsman style to it with shingles above. It's 2-story. There's been pretty extensive second floor addition done over the years and beautiful landscaping. And then now we have the existing house owned by the Vanderpools. And you can see they've been wanting to improve it for many years. And now we're finally getting the chance to do that. We both feel it lacks character and, craftsmanship that gives more of a local vibe and coastal architecture that we're planning to achieve. Here you see the site plan that we're proposing. At the front, we have a new entry porch and flagstone entry walk, a very small entry addition just to improve the front access. And then to the west side, there is an approximate 7-foot wide extension, which is going to house an office and new bathroom, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then upstairs, we're doing, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor moving around. Yeah, okay, good. We're doing a remodel of the second floor and then kitchen remodel with a new crow's nest above. So this is the first floor plan. You can see the entry extension with a new porch, which is going to give them good rain protection and better access. And it's, as you see with the front view, which I'll show in a minute, it adds a lot of nice character to the front. The home office, and then a new restroom, which is really needed on the main living level, which they do not have right now. You have to go up a narrow flight of stairs to get to it. So if they have elderly or handicapped over, there's no place for them to use the restroom. We're moving the laundry to the main level where the existing entry is now. You can see sort of in the center of the plan. And that's going to give them much better access to the laundry machines. And then opening up the kitchen to the living. You can see the exterior fixture schedule. We've been sensitive to the requirements of developing on the coast using night sky friendly downward directed lighting, which you can see here. And then leading upstairs, the master bedroom is being extended out about 5 to 6 feet with a new master bath to give them more space. And then the crow's nest, which is going to be more living space for their grandchildren to play in. And then here's the front view showing the new crow's nest. We're adding new weathered gray shingle siding, cedar knee braces. You can see the downward directed light sconces on the outside. A new cedar entry porch with heavy cedar timbers. At the base of each post, there'll be some stained concrete bases. with a new craftsman style front door. We're replacing all the windows, which are in need of replacement, with tan vinyl. The images below are showing some houses with similar qualities that we're striving to achieve with this one. And I think they are a good representation of coastal kinds of aesthetic and style that fit the town of Trinidad. This is the south view, which shows the new shingle siding wrapping around, the master bedroom, the small extension upstairs, and then the crow's nest with a standing seam metal roof. The west view, once again with the shingle siding, you can see the crow's nest. The east side. And then that's really what I have to show you guys for this evening. I know there's a lot of debate over the view impacts, and I do not feel it has a significant view impact given the amount of structures that are already along Underwood Drive. The office extension to the side is only 7 feet wide, and there's a fair amount of shrubbery and other things in the way. Underwood Drive is set back from the edge of the bluff quite a ways, so you're not directly impacting the view straight out to the ocean, in my opinion. The crow's nest is only 12 feet wide. So given the entire width of the property, it's a fairly small impact to the overall view. And I feel it's worth it given the added space that the family desperately needs. They're multi-generational. It's really adding to the overall aesthetic of the house in a very pleasing way, in my opinion. The master bedroom at the rear is not visible from the street and is not having an impact from your street view. So with that, the Vanderpools may have a few comments. Yeah, thank you for letting me share the design. And of course, I'm available for additional comments.
Thank you. Let me.
And Richard, I can pull up any of these images if we need to.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Again, Sherry or Chuck Vanderpool, do you have any comments that you'd like to make at this point? Go ahead, Sherry. You're on mute.
Okay, hi. Just what you spoke about earlier to the importance of it, the addition to us. We did move here to Trinidad about 11 years ago because our son had moved with his family and we wanted to be near our son and grandkids. We were lucky enough to land in the same town that they were in. As the kids are getting older, they're now 11 and 15. They need a little bit more space to hang out, as well as, escape from us and go, hang out by themselves. And as well as when we have 2 other children that live out of the area, one's in Portland, one's in Luxembourg, when they come to visit with their partner and with our other grandchildren. So we have another area, a little bit more room for all of us to visit together. That's all I needed to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll bring it back to the commissioners at this point. Commissioners, do you have any questions or clarification that you would like to get either from Mr. Berg or the Vanderpools?
I had just one. I'm not sure who to direct it to. Regarding the story poles for the proposed crow's nest, what of the elevation do they represent? The interior dimensions, or do they also represent the maximum width of the actual roof line up there? Because it looks to be a bit of a difference between those on the diagram that you posted. Thanks.
You're on mute, Cherry.
Yeah.
I believe they represent, as he was telling me, the outsides. He said 12 by 12, and that's what the story poles represent. And the height is 4 feet above the peak.
4 feet 4.
4 feet 4.
So then I guess for clarification, they represent the footprint, not the extent of the maximum extent of the overhang of the roof line. Is that a correct clarification?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so. We could ask Julian if I may be wrong, but I think that's what it was. Julian, do you know?
Apologies, I was opening up another view. I didn't get up to Underwood Drive to see him myself because I've been on a family trip. But from the photos I saw, it looked pretty close to the representation of my plans and what we've come up with. I know it's hard to get it exactly right when you're up there teetering on a roof. And I believe the Vanderpoels did it themselves to save on cost.
I'll just jump in here because I think this is an important point. Trevor, I want to ask you a question. When you did your floor to lot area ratios, did you use the 144 square feet or the overall footprint, including roof overhangs?
The square footage is measured from exterior wall to exterior wall, so it does not include the overhangs.
Okay, thank you. That kind of gives me a better feel for what you had in mind. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions or clarifications requested from the applicant or agent? All right, at this point then we can open it up for public comment. Now I know that we have received a great deal of public comment, not only in numbers but also in amount. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak if they wish. However, we do request that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. If there is an absolute need for you to take a little bit longer, the commission can entertain that, but it is strictly up to the commission to determine whether or not they will give you additional time. I might point out that, as I said, there's a great deal of comments, both in number of comments and the amount of the comments, and all of those are in the record. So there really is no need to repeat all of them. Otherwise, we'd be here for quite some time. But I do appreciate the fact that there were so many interested parties and comments that provided those comments. Rest assured that we have spent a great deal of time going through them. So at this point, I will open it up for public comment. And the best way to do it is to use your little hand signal or raise your hand and try to get my attention the best way you can. Anton, your hand is up. Are you saying something, or is that an old one?
My hand is not up. Jonathan Block's hand is up.
Okay, I'm sorry. My mistake. I see it. Okay, let's see. Let me find Jonathan. Okay, there you are.
I figured I could jump right in. I think Carrie and I might be the primary opposers of this project. I know there are others. Yeah, thanks for everything, and I trust that I mean, we wrote a 16-page document that opposes this. It's in a lot of detail. It was painstaking to write. It shows why we oppose the project and why also we're upset with the Vanderpool's conduct throughout. And we're happy to share this document with anybody else who would want to request it. I want to thank the planning commissioner, because you guys are obviously committed to service, and we do feel like there's due process in this. So we really appreciate that. We do understand the need to respect everyone's time here and be as brief as possible. Maybe we could have 5 to 10 minutes and also show some pictures.
What's the pleasure of the commissioners? Okay, we'll give you
Thank
10
you.
minutes.
Thank you.
So we're not opposed to the Vanderpools improving or trying to beautify their home. We would encourage that. After listening to Julian and Sherry speak, I absolutely agree that the house lacks character and craftsmanship, and all the extra touches that Julian had mentioned would be great. Agree with having a larger master bedroom with those southern views to be comfortable on, a first floor bathroom, the important space for your children to hang out. We do feel that all of these are achievable by other means. In our 16-page document is at least a page and a half of creative alternatives. And I don't think any of them are really unreasonable, or we wouldn't have put them in the document. And we've actually come up with more since then. We would at first, ask that the planning commission just flat out deny elements of this project due to complete and blatant disregard for these ordinances. Blocking important views, but also respecting the need to try and compromise with other neighbors who have concerns. We now have countless hours invested in opposing this project, and the project's pretty ridiculous because it has a lot of flaws. Architecturally, it's flawed for reasons that it blocks views. And even in a conversation with Julian, you admitted when you called me that, yeah, can we take the desktop and we'll show you some pictures? You said that you did not build this thing with view protections in mind on the phone to me last Friday when you finally called. But now you're saying that you don't think it has significant impacts. You think it does not sit in front of the Pacific Ocean. That 7-foot extension to the west, the shrubberies in front of a house. All the houses that you show on this side of the street have nothing behind us, So I also have to disagree with some of the pretense and all those touches. You can bring this house up to a Trinidad standard without having to block those views. We're trying to get a screenshot. Hold on a second. How do we take over the screen?
I'm not sure. It says I need to open system preferences.
Try just sitting share. Desktop on share.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you see our screen right now?
No.
No.
Is it important that people other than the commissioners see these pictures? Because I know you have these pictures.
I'm sure the commissioners have seen them, yes.
I'm not able to screen share, unfortunately. It's just that, oh wait, I need to make it. Sorry, one more thing. Let me try one more thing.
Thank you.
We love to show you some pictures of the incredible impacts that this project has on our views and our home value. Not just that, but also just the enjoyment of our home and the amount that we will be, having to experience this construction in our front yard every single day of our life with our young kids. So that's important to us. We'd love to have us. Sorry, it's taking me a second, but I really hope we get a chance to share our pictures. Can you do your password?
Yes.
Anton, have you given them permission?
It looks like it's something going on my side of things.
Everyone should be able to share their screens at this point.
I think I had a security setting that.
Oh, it's going to ask me to leave the meeting and come back.
Just go for it.
So we'll be doing that. Hold on one second. Okay, tell me how.
Richard, while they're doing that, I just wanted to understand for our response to neighborhood comments, does that happen at the end?
You'll have an opportunity to.
The end, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
No, I think we all understand that this is going to take some time to work through. So we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to participate. Technology. Love it or leave it.
I'm always amazed that everything can run so smoothly up until you actually have your group presentation. Then the technology issues start happening.
Okay.
It's almost guaranteed.
Yeah, that's it.
No, this one.
Yeah, wait.
This one. Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you guys. Thanks for your patience.
Yes,
You
thank
see
you.
us
Okay.
now? Okay, you tell me where you want to go.
So, I'll just say that we feel totally bulldozed by the Vanderpools. This is their letter to us on June 9th that was provided to us like almost 2 months after they had already submitted all these plans to the commission. They describe a 6-foot extension to the west that's really 7 feet. They say they need space for the growing family. They suddenly have changed the entire use thing. They described this 4'4" at the pitch of the nest, but that's not really what's happening. And they respect our neighbors and they intend to do not infringe on views and are happy to discuss any concerns they have. We have gotten anything but this from them. Okay, they've been a nightmare to work with. Okay, this crow's nest extends 9 feet above the pitch of their house and extends 4 feet above their apex, which is at entirely another place. So we also feel like there's just been a lot of bad tactics. I also want to point out, and Trevor, this is important too. This is the very first construction, the very first design of this house that has a 7-foot setback from the fence, a 20-foot setback from Underwood Drive. And if you notice, it's in a mirror image with the second floor located on the western side of the house where it's closer to Trinidad Head and Little Trinidad Head, okay? And then they started putting this is the original septic permit, again, 20 feet off the street and a septic system that's placed behind the house, okay? And then the septic permit expired, so they kind of went in and started putting in the septic system. All the neighbors got really irate. This was like really, these letters are like, people got really, really mad about this, okay? And then because they discovered suddenly someone's putting in a 2-story house, and then they finally saw the models for this house. So some interesting things happened after that when this house got constructed. It got moved 12 feet to the east. Now they're proposing moving it it moved 5 feet to the east. Instead of having a 7-foot setback, it was required to have a 12-foot setback. Now you're proposing having a 5-foot setback, moving the house back in the exact same location. Another thing that interesting that happened to this house is it flipped mirror image. So now the 2-story portion came onto the eastern side of the house to get it further away from Trinidad and Trinidad Head. It also looks like the house got moved further back from the street and further down the hill to purposefully avoid all the view blocking that is about ready to occur through this project now. Now, granted, this was over 40 years ago. I mean, Trinidad Head, they have a restaurant named after the thing. So they should respect that 11 years ago, this is why they came here. And this is like the mission of, this is why we live here. Our concerns from a structural point of view, this is the main window from our home. Okay, this is where we live. Okay, this is where we're sitting now. And these pictures are reasonably accurate. And we don't want this to happen to our house. And Julian, you're wrong when you say this thing will not block views of the Pacific Ocean, okay? This is the eastern side of our house. We are fine with the Vanderpools considering putting something on the north side of their house. They can have a very nice little office here. They can have a very nice coverway that keeps them well protected out of the rain. They could even put a nice carport over here to keep them even more protected out of the rain and actually functionally use their garage for things like over half of Trinidad does. This would be a great place for their laundry room. And that way they can still have a master bathroom. I would put a master bathroom or a bathroom on my first floor before I consider putting a laundry room on there. But this is where most people have it. They use their garage for other things I'm not going to mention right now. Okay, moving on. These are more of the views that we just don't want blocked. This is from This is from our foyer now. This is my view that I breath take in every morning when I leave for work, and Carrie does the same. That's the view that we see when we think about the last time I just saw my family for the last time before I come home, okay? And then we step out and then we breathe the fresh air. These purple lines indicate places where the Vanderbilts could potentially build instead, okay? We're not stoked about this because it does block ocean views, but it's certainly better than blocking views like this for us as well too. So there's certainly options that can be achieved without irreplaceably removing these views. This is the eastern side of our house. So again, we have a main view out of our main window that is already of the Vanderpool's house with the views behind it. And we don't want these blockages to occur. The ordinance really prevent this stuff. The ordinance are written for us. And I think that all came out of this house originally being built. It had to have been one of the first planning commission meetings that Trinidad saw. This is our master bedroom. This is the main view from our master bedroom. This is the room I hope to die in someday. This would be my last breath.
And it obstructs completely
And it
Little Trinidad Head.
Yeah, it obstructs completely Little Trinidad Head, much less removes our skyline. So we'd be really opposed to these things, as everybody knows we are. These are the story poles these are the story poles. The western story pole shows it pretty reasonably, but the top story pole does nothing. Oh, these are more views from, this is the west outside of our master bathrooms that someday are going to need improvement too. I mean, we have our own space issues, our own bathroom issues. We have serious concerns for the light pollution and the lack of privacy we're going to have after this thing goes up. We like our quiet, dark little town where we can see the ocean and the stars reflecting off of it. We have skyline concerns. Here's the other crow's nest. It's not owned by a local resident. This house has plenty of space. This crow's nest, plenty of space to live and run around in. I think I drew this one too big. I'm going to admit that, but it does definitely compete with the church. This one's a little bit more proportionate to size. Maybe it's still a little bit big, but it competes with the church. It competes with everything to the west. It competes with the big, beautiful tree outside Dwight's house. Again, other places they can build.
Mm-hmm.
This is the view from the street. The whole corridor disappears. This is the shrubbery that he's talking about, but behind that shrubbery is actually a rooftop that goes higher than the Pacific Ocean. So you're not going to get any more Pacific Ocean once that shrubbery disappears. There's your view of Camel Rock from Underwood. There's one other view of Camel Rock from Underwood near Dwight's house. It's a little bit better view than this, but still, this is the only view on our side. This is the view for the church. This is the view that the people who visit Trinidad who have heart failure that can only walk 1 or 2 blocks are going to ultimately see. This is the proposed project with hard lines drawn off the rooftop. This is this is on a good day. This is after the wind blew. More proposed projects. I went up on my roof to try to get a better idea of the views they're actually going to obtain. They're actually not going to obtain views this high because they're not going to be this high up. More skyline issues. This is just, if Costa Rica, Jacques Cousteau called Costa Rica the most dynamic part of, the North America, this is the most dynamic part. This is it. This is where the currents change. This is where everything happens for it. This is where the birds circle and feed. On a cloudy day, this is sometimes all we're going to get. It really makes those cloudy days more special for us. So yeah, that's it. That's all I had to say, I think. At first, I wanted you to just completely deny this project minus the southern bedroom things, but my last point is if you do want to allow a redesign of this project, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that politically correct, but I can't imagine this thing can pass as it currently sits. All I ask is that this process has been incredibly difficult on us and our family. We've had our own trips ruined with my daughter and stuff like that while, I had to write and deal with this. My elbow hurts. I'm mentally, physically, and emotionally much less off over this just as it spits. If you want, and I'm looking at you, Sherry and Chuck, as I say this, if you want to try to move forward with attempts to redesign these bulky portions, we feel like we deserve to be well informed, abreast of your project, with opportunity to provide feedback in a respectful and dignified manner that respects our time, our privacy, and our own family's concerns. Otherwise, I would ask that the Planning Commission just simply reject your request at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to say anything, honey? I'm sorry.
You've used up your 10 minutes. Sorry to say, but
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Allow you guys, everybody.
Yeah, so I will breathe now. Thank you.
good, breathe. Okay. All right, thank you. Again, we're still looking for public comment. Are there any other members of the public who would like to comment on this project?
I would like to comment if possible. My name is Chris Slay. I live at 692 Underwood Drive, and I would like to share my screen for what I think should be a 5 to 7 minute presentation.
I was going to say, how much time do you need?
Approximately 5 to 7 minutes. I've got a lot of slides, but I teach at HSU and I'm used to blowing through slides, no problem. So let's see what we can do here.
Thank you.
I will attempt to share my screen, and hopefully you're seeing my presentation at the moment. Could you quickly confirm for me that you are?
Yes.
Great. All right. I'm keeping an eye on the clock. So I'm presenting on behalf of my spouse, Holly, and my dad, Chuck. All of us are co-owners and co-tenants of 692 Underwood Drive. That's why I would ask that you give a bit more time since I'm speaking on behalf of 3 stakeholders. I would also say that we are located here in a location which was, I think, inconsequentially blocked by part of this figure, which appears on the plans. But indeed, that's a bit indicative, I think, of the general problem, which is that our perspective and indeed our existence hasn't really fully been acknowledged throughout this, turns out, 4-year-long process. And I want to begin by sharing a few things that you actually all already know. The first of which is that Trinidad Head is beautiful, right? It is a dynamic and important feature of the landscape, not just because of its geographical prominence, but also because of its cultural and historical significance. And already, as you see, the Vanderpool home obscures much of our view of Trinidad Head. And so we have just a limited amount of view of Trinidad Head remaining. And as I've already hopefully pointed out, it is a very dynamic part of the landscape. While I won't dispute that we've got extensive views ranging from Camel Rock in the southeast up towards Flatiron Rock in the west, Trinidad Head is the centerpiece of our view. It is a beautiful and dynamic geographical feature. And fortunately, I believe that existing and drafted statutes protect our views of Trinidad Head. And I won't bore you with this because indeed you probably know these statutes better than I do. But we see specifically mentioned in a number of places views of Trinidad Head being specifically protected, and indeed views of the shoreline from viewpoints inside structures located uphill from proposed development is protected by existing Trinidad statute as well. And then also, planning commissioners, as you know, because you are currently drafting and preparing to implement new language in chapter 17.60.050 of the municipal code, that specifically then prohibits structures, including fences, walls, signs, and landscaping from unreasonably blocking views of Trinidad Head. And so that's the end of the bit that you already know about. Let me share with you my perspective on your task for the evening. So this comes out of the staff report that Trevor shared with you all. So this evening, planning commissioners will need to determine if views are significantly blocked from neighboring residences and whether any feasible changes to the project can be made to reduce or eliminate the impacts. And so if you sort of tease that apart, you've got 2 tasks before you this evening. First, determining if views are significantly blocked from neighboring residences. And secondly, determining whether any feasible changes to the project can be made to reduce or eliminate the impacts. And so let's step through those 2 bits individually, beginning with the first. Are views significantly blocked from neighboring residences? Indeed, this is the view from our patio. I'll begin by saying that the proposed crow's nest blocks some amount of our view of Trinidad Head from what I would consider to be our primary living space, our living room. This is indeed a photo from our porch, where we spend a significant amount of time as well. And here you see, of course, a fairly accurate a rendering of what that crow's nest would do to our view. But I want to point out some of the language in the what I believe is views and vegetation ordinance. And you'll see that in several of these pieces of language, we see specific references to things like complaining parties, right, in parts A and D. We also see reference to a single property in part B. But I want to draw your attention to part C here, right, which says the quality and percentage of the coastal views being obstructed, including obstruction of landmarks, vistas, or other unique features, and the quality of the living area or viewpoint from which the view is blocked. And so I would like to point out that this sort of doesn't specify a single complaining party's quality and percentage of coastal views. I would argue that you should consider holistically the total amount of coastal views being obstructed and the total quality and percentage of neighbors' coastal views, which are indeed obscured by some new development. And so I would add then that there are at least 5 homes that are uphill or level with 707 Underwood Drive that would face view obstructions. Ours, as you just saw in a previous slide, Carrie and Jonathan's, number 2, which you saw in his previous presentation. Number 3 would be Gail Becker. She actually endorses the project. And we don't actually know the opinions of Chip and Lori Marks at 675 Underwood. We don't know how the owners of Whale Song feel about it, but they would be impacted by the project as well. And so we also know that there are several other individuals and other neighbors on our street who oppose the project, including folks at 854 Underwood and 780 Underwood. You probably know more information than I do at this point. But what I wanted to mention was that regardless of whether current residents oppose or endorse these projects, it is the role of the Planning Commission to determine on behalf of all present and future community members the extent to which view obstructions collectively from all viewpoints will occur. So whether you individually believe that our views are not substantially blocked, you want to consider holistically and collectively the amount of blockages which are occurring, regardless of whether current residents are opposing or endorsing those plans. And then the second bit, returning to my argument from earlier, the second bit of what you have to do this evening is determine whether any feasible changes to the project can be made to reduce or eliminate impacts. And I think in doing so, you have to consider what goals the Vanderpools are trying to achieve. And fortunately, they've shared a very limited amount of information with us, but I think it's good enough for us to piece together what their goals are. From the design review set of plans that you all have in front of you, they say these alterations will make the home more livable for the Vanderpool family. From a June 9th letter that Carrie and Jonathan shared with you a moment ago, they say this remodel is giving us additional needed space for our growing family. And then from an August 3rd email from Chuck and Sherry, they said, the crow's nest will be our additional living and sleeping room for our grandchildren. And so when you piece together their stated goals, my collective interpretation of what those goals are is that they are, seeking to provide additional living and sleeping space, especially for the young Vanderpools, their grandchildren, right? And, there are 3 generations under our roof as well. Granted, it would be a smaller roof than theirs at 1,970 square feet. So I get it, and I don't have any objection to that. I do have questions about how they may have alternatives that are more successful at achieving those goals. And so I want to draw your attention to a few places where Julian Berg uses the phrase crow's nest, once in the project description and then twice in the plans themselves. And, looking through the internet, as one does, I didn't see a standard sort of architectural definition of what a crow's nest is. But if you have a look at, say, the Google image results of crow's nests, you see that crow's nests are elevated viewpoints which sit above the bulk of a home's living area and exist primarily to absorb views, ideally 360-degree views. And this image, I think, is my favorite because you would agree with me, right, that there's no shortage of usable, functional living space in this home, and yet they've still got a crow's nest atop it, right? Crow's nests generally function primarily as elevated viewpoints and are typically non-essential recreational spaces from which views can be enjoyed. And so I feel compelled to mention them.
Mr. Slay.
I'm sorry?
One more minute, Mr. Slay.
Okay, so I feel compelled then to say that the Vanderpools already have extensive south-facing viewpoints, including over 700 square feet of balconies and other patio spaces, which sort of renders the crow's nest redundant. And so my question for you folks and for the applicants is, how does the addition of a crow's nest, which almost universally serves primarily as an elevated viewing platform, help achieve Vanderpool's stated goals? I would say, if they really are trying to add living and sleeping space for the grandchildren, the crow's nest is an exceptionally poor way to do that. It's got 12 windows. That makes an extremely bright space with poor privacy. Is that really the best possible living and sleeping space for children? If you look at additional plans, and I'll just allow you to observe differences between these images, you'll see that they eliminate a closet from one of the bedrooms. They also expand their master bedroom by 139 square feet. So I'll just quickly remind you before I stop about my collective interpretation of their stated goals, right? And how this renovation does or does not address those goals, right? It includes a crow's nest, which is not, according to Chuck and Sherry, serving primarily as an elevated recreational viewpoint. It includes the addition of a living and sleeping space for grandchildren, which is poorly suited for both because it's bright and lacks privacy. It includes the removal of a closet from an existing bedroom, and it adds 139 square feet, not to living spaces for grandchildren, but indeed to the master bedroom and ensuite. So can changes be made to reduce or eliminate impacts? Yes, especially considering how poorly the proposed changes actually achieve the Vanderpool's stated goals. Looking back at your tasks this evening, you should determine if views are significantly blocked from neighboring residences. They are from multiple residences. You should determine whether any feasible changes to the project can be made to reduce or eliminate to reduce or eliminate impacts. They can. And here's my final question for you folks. If the language in the general plan, in the view and vegetation ordinance, in the zoning ordinance doesn't serve to protect views for people like us in situations exactly like this, why does that language exist? So hopefully I will get out of your hair. I'll shut up. Thank you for granting me a bit of extra time. But I do definitely want to leave you pondering this question and definitely contemplating the precedent that you may establish tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slay. Okay, any other comments from the public? I don't see any, but I don't want to miss anybody. So I'm just checking. I don't see anyone. So I'll bring it back out of public comment. I'll bring it back to the commission. And Mr. Berg, you did ask for an opportunity to respond. And if you would like to do that at this point, that's acceptable. But again, please, let's try to keep it to a reasonable amount of time. And then the commission will have an opportunity to ask questions for clarification, et cetera. So I lost you, Mr. Where'd you go? Are you there?
Hi, Richard, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was repositioning with, so yeah, I have a few comments. Personally, I do not feel that this is a significant view impact, given the entire 180+ degree view that these neighbors have. The crow's nest is 12 feet wide. That is a small bedroom. Furthermore, the depictions that were done by the neighbors are wrong. They've exaggerated the lines of our project for their favor. I would also like to say that I approached two of the neighbors directly across the street to be able to go into the residence, get a better idea of the view impacts, and take some photos so I could analyze it better, and I was denied. They did not allow me to do that. I felt like Jonathan, when I spoke with him on the phone, was rude to me and very intense, and I didn't feel comfortable speaking to him, to be honest. It just was the way he approached both me and the Vanderpool's was just not kind, and in a way that I would like to respond to. So I've done a number of projects in Trinidad, and this is the first one where it's ever been this intense, to be honest. I'm pretty much in shock here because I feel I've proposed a beautiful design and something that is going to really complement the city and the Underwood Drive, and have this kind of criticism and borderline nasty responses from neighbors is unconscionable. It's just not right. So that's my comments. I feel that we've proposed a beautiful project that gives a lot of added space. It gives a lot of quality space and functional space for the family. Thank you.
Thank you. I would remind everybody, let's always keep a professional attitude here. I know this is very difficult, very emotional in some instances, but let's try to be fair to one another as much as we can.
I know I'm out of order, but I would like to address some of the Julian.
You are out of order. So if you just wait a minute, we need to have the commission to weigh in on. We haven't even had a chance to discuss this ourselves. So any further? We didn't see any further public comment. Let me get in some questions and comments from the commissioners, and then we can also come back and ask some of the participants in this discussion if they would like to make some very brief comments. I think we all understand the messages that are being sent, so let's try to stay on course here. Okay, so to the commissioners, questions, comments for either the applicant or staff? What? No? Oh, okay, Diane?
I have a lot of comments. First of all, I did not get to the residences on Underwood because my husband was in the hospital. But everyone needs to know that I have been in Trinidad for 46 years. I was born in Arcata. So I live 2 blocks from Underwood, and I've been back and forth around this town. My kids went to school here, and the views are the issue. They are obstructive in town. I've got 6 issues in my yard. I have 7 neighbors in my half-acre yard, and the views need to be addressed. And we have tried to do this in the Planning Commission as we are doing our design element and our vegetation element. And what's been presented tonight by the different parties and the letters are valid. So I'm going to make a couple more comments. And I do appreciate what the Vanderpool's want to do. And I know Julian Berg, and the design is great, but it's not appropriate, in my opinion, because of the obstructive views and the heights. Okay. So first of all, this thing was constructed, the Vanderpool house was constructed in the late 70s, and I was here. And it was contested by the neighborhood because it was going to block views and the way it was going to be situated, so they had to fix it. The Planning Commission, with several of us on it, especially Richard and I, had a similar big issue with when we were trying to do the STR, the short-term rental houses in Trinidad with views and neighbors. And my message is we need to be good neighbors. And I have done this around town with some of my neighbors, that we need to listen to them and we need to figure out a plan for the neighborhood, because we are a small town. We have one white line, maybe 2 or 3 now because of those stop signs. So I was pretty upset that the engineer, the city engineer, and the building inspector didn't have any comments to add to this, because they have a job here. And I think it's obstructive because it is a bulk. It's over the 2,000 square feet. And the project will impact the views of the neighborhood. Also, the trail that's over by the Poulton's house has a lot of traffic walking by so that they can get to the trail that goes down to the trail from the state beach that then goes down to the Marine Lab and the beaches. And I have to say the views are going to be obstructed, whether it's the head, the church, the boats in the bay. I know all these because I walked and my views are obstructed. And let me see what else I have here. Landscaping might not be an issue now, but it will be in the future because people do not maintain their vegetation. And everybody on the Planning Commission and that listens to me knows that I am out there and I want a city walk to look at vegetation maintenance because it's not happening appropriately. Okay, let me see what else. Okay. Okay, so in the view protection ordinance, view number C, the proposed project's location increases in height and width of the structure. Views from residents on the other side of Underwood will be impacted. So it's in our notes that the views are going to be impacted. And the crow's nest is definitely going to impact the view. I think they're pretty cool, but Trinidad is a seaside village. And we are moving towards tiny houses, smaller buildings. So the crow's nest is going to be in the way. So I think there are other alternatives, feasible alternatives for the Vanderpools and for the residents, on Underwood, so that the neighborhoods could get along. Okay, I think that's all for me right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Yes, Aaron. Aaron.
Yeah, I'll go next. Nobody's going to be happy at the end of this meeting. Somebody's going to come with an outcome that is less than what they want, potentially, because obviously there's two very differing opinions. And these are the moments on the Planning Commission that I spend the most amount of time and the most amount of turmoil over, because these involve my neighbors and people I see in town. This is a very, very small town. With that, kind of to begin with, the last thing before I get kind of into my points is that regardless of the outcome, there's definitely, I walk down Underwood as frequently as I can to get down to the trail to the Marine Lab, right? That's a common pathway for my family. And there's definitely been a change in the physical vibe on the street there. And just listening to folks, I know there's a lot of passion. And so I hope that once the dust settles from whatever the outcome is, we can regroup and come back, that we all enjoy this town for the reasons that we all moved here and continue to come here and enjoy it. Speaking specifically to the application, I have a letter from Chuck and Sherry here in front of me, August 11th. It was included in the packet. It seems like there's some miscommunication, which seems to be a common theme, but the interpretation of their office is that any expansion, east, west, or up, is unacceptable. This is unreasonable. I agree, but I've heard otherwise from the opposition tonight that there are other options out there. I have concerns over the bulk of the crow's nest. I feel having that projection on top of a building is unlike anything else in town, and I don't feel it fits with the character of town. But I also have concerns over it being referred to by a bunch of different uses: living space, this and that, bedroom, kind of these terms have been switched back and forth. And so that raises concern with me for the OWTS side of this, right? We have, if there's an additional bedroom, if it's going to be living space and it's a bedroom, it needs to be, in my opinion, appropriately used and appropriately functioned. And the septic system needs to match that. And if that's the intended goal, that needs to happen. Because as we know, we've got a very special water off the coastal, the bluffs here. I have a lot of issue with exceeding the 2,000 square foot guideline in town. I have issues and concerns over the public views from Underwood. I enjoy walking down Underwood, and one of the things I will miss with the projection on the western side would be that view down there, and there's not vegetation currently blocking it. If I have anything else just roughly here. Those are kind of the biggest things that are jumping out for me right now, not to belabor anything that Diana already mentioned as well. And, I'm concerned about the precedent and the future. And I think this is unlike anything else that we have in town that's been proposed. Specifically, the crow's nest is that piece. That's it for now. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole.
Yeah, I think my overall impression of the project is, I guess I will say that I do like the design that Julian put together, and I appreciate the Vanderpool's effort to sort of beautify their home and make it more of a seaside residence. All the aspects that Julian highlighted in his presentation earlier. It seems to me, though, that the crow's nest aspect isn't necessarily fitting for a home in town, but would be maybe more fitting for a home, say, on Scenic Drive or on Patrick's Point Drive or something like that, where it's more of a rural setting rather than an urban setting, if you will, here in town. And after visiting the neighbors across the street, Jonathan and Carrie's house, it became, with the story poles present, I think one of the things, or maybe the thing that stuck out the most to me there was that their view of Little Trinidad Head specifically was pretty much wiped out by the story poles there. And that's the view of Little Trinidad Head is something that's explicitly called out in our latest design review criteria. That's something that's worth protecting. And they currently have that, and they would lose that basically entirely should this project be built. And another concern I had was also with regard to light pollution from the crow's nest. It is sort of, the crow's nest is very akin to a lighthouse in a lot of ways, which job is to emanate light. So if the lights were on up there at night, I think it would pollute a large portion of at least the neighbors on the other side of the street. And with regard, like everyone else, I also walk down Underwood Road all the time, and I mean, I think the impact to the views from the road is actually rather minimal, but it certainly is present. There is that little alley, I guess not alley, but there's setback on the side there where you have a peek out to the ocean. But from further down Underwood Drive, which is where the majority of the ocean view that I notice anyways while walking on the street is still pretty wide open. But yeah, I think it just doesn't seem fitting, particularly the crow's nest aspect. I think the overall design is good. I was a little, given that we are on the Redwood Coast here, Julian explicitly called out that he was using cedar timbers in his construction. I would have liked to have seen redwood in the construction, given that that's what we grow around here, but that's relatively minor in the scheme of things.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Hopkins, any comments?
All right, I'll go. It is a beautiful design. I don't think that it's really appropriate. And I see that there is room to achieve what you want by using different means that are in a more neighborly fashion. And I feel that it's important because we got a lot of ADUs potentially coming, and the next thing we know, the streets around here are all going to be walled in, and the views, we just won't have views. And there was already a battle about this house, 40 years ago or whatever. That's all part of it, and that should have been part of the discussion going in. And so it's a good one to learn from. But yeah, I think it could be redesigned. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Block, did you put your hand down?
Yes, I put my hand up. Thanks. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. These are difficult issues, and this is probably one of the more difficult aspects of being on the Planning Commission, is to have to work with neighbors, friends, associates. Makes it very, very difficult to try to reach conclusions here that are satisfactory to everyone. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen, sometimes it does. I always balance the issue of the rights of individual property owners and their rights to what they can do on their property, and the rights of neighbors to peacefully enjoy their property as well and not be unduly impacted by the actions of others. So there's just no easy solution, no easy answers for any of this. So let me just talk about a couple of my concerns. I see a lot of hands up, but you had an opportunity and I would like to move on at this point. So Trevor, I have a question for you. I just want to confirm that the west side extension, does that still meet the setback requirements?
It does, yes. It meets the minimum setback of 5 feet for a side yard.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that that was the case. I also had a problem, a concern, and it's not part of our design or view criteria, but I think it is an issue, and we have addressed that. We'll address it in our most recent design review criteria, and that is, I would really be concerned about light pollution from the so-called crow's nest, or whatever we want to call it. There's nothing in the design right now that would suggest that any of that light is going to be screened in any way. And as I think someone has already pointed out, it's somewhat like a lighthouse. and the light with the number of windows in the crow's nest would suggest that light pollution is going to be a significant issue, not just for residents on Underwood, but I think anywhere where that crow's nest can be seen at night, there's going to be a significant amount of light pollution. So I would certainly be very, very concerned about that. I will also resonate with others who have said that the design is very pleasing. I guess I'll put it in a very simple term. I think the design really works. It's been the wrong location. And for primarily the reasons of the size and bulk of the crow's nest, that is, I believe, the primary issue, although there may be some secondary issues with the other, the west side addition as well. But again, we're trying to figure out a way to move forward on this. And so my concern is the crow's nest. Design criteria, I don't have any problems with the design criteria. However, the view protection is where I have most of my concerns. And one thing I would point out that hasn't been addressed tonight is that if you look at the view protection item A, which is structures visible from the beach or a public trail in an open space area should be made as visually unobtrusive as possible. Surprisingly enough, I was walking on Edwards, and it's very easy to see the crow's nest from Edwards, and that is part of our trail system. So that would be another concern that I have, is that are we meeting the criteria for item A of the view protection? People have already discussed item B. I won't go into any more detail on that. And the item in item C, again, that has also been discussed. So I feel that's been reported fairly enough. So where does that leave us? You know, I think the consensus is that there are perhaps some alternatives that could be looked at, that maybe some additional coordination with neighbors. I guess my question would be to the applicant and to the agent, are there any alternatives that can be addressed that might mitigate some of the concerns that the neighbors have? And how would we go about doing that? Is there some way that we can come together and reach some sort of compromise, whatever it might take, and whether that might be even mediation or some way in which we can come together. So from my personal standpoint, I think I would like to see if there is an opportunity for some additional compromise in design. So I'm not willing to say no to the project this evening, but I would like to see if there's an opportunity, if the agent and applicants are willing to work with the neighbors and work with the city to see if there's a way in which we can facilitate something that will be certainly more acceptable to more people. So my recommendation tonight, and we'll get to a vote in a minute or two, depending upon what the commission feels, I would like to keep this open until we maybe have an opportunity to understand what alternatives may be available, or at least have the applicant report back on whether or not they can or cannot make changes to the design. I see some hands up. Usually at this stage of the game, I do not, and the commission doesn't entertain any more public comment, but I certainly understand the complexity of this issue. I'll allow Mr. Slay and Dr. Block to make some comments, but I want you to keep them very, very brief, please.
Sure, and thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. I just wanted to address a few things that Julian Berg mentioned, some of which might be useful as you make your deliberations. The first is that I did absolutely not over-exaggerate the extent of the obstruction from our residents. I literally, in MS Paint, drew lines connecting the story poles. That was in no way an over-exaggeration of the size and bulk of that structure. The other thing I feel like is important to convey is that, and this all appears in my submitted comments as well, we learned about the project on June 1st. I sent a very kind letter to the Vanderpools on June 9th. I got a response to that letter, which I indeed called a good faith attempt at negotiation. No response. On August 10th, I sent a less kind letter, namely calling out their lack of empathy. Got no response to that, despite calling it a good faith attempt at negotiation and mediation as well. Indeed, we've heard no details and had no communication with the Vanderpools about this project until they dispatched or attempted to dispatch Julian to our home on the 11th of August, when we were having recently departed for a 5-day camping trip. So of course we declined a visit of the applicant's agent to our home while we were absent. So I just wanted to address those comments that Julian made. Thank you for granting me this time. I realized I was not entitled to it. And thank you again for your consideration this evening.
Thank you. Dr. Block.
Similar, I just want to respond on Julian's comments. I feel like he attacked my character tonight. If you talk to people that know me, I don't think that they will tell you that I'm an unreasonable person. I do have forms of anxiety. I do have Asperger's, and I am passionate, and I'm a very peaceful person. I am willing to fight and stand up for things that I believe in, and the ordinance of Trinidad just happens to be one of those things. I want to also remind you that when you called me, I had my first 10-minute break. Like, after trying to tour colleges with my daughter, we were just sitting down to dinner, and I was almost tearful at how much my arms had hurt, and thankful for just an opportunity to sit with her and share that opportunity. And that was what was happening for me when you called. And that just goes in with the countless hours that I have invested in this. 3 times at least, this schedule and these conversations have been rooted around your own personal vacations. And to move on forward, I only have one request now, and it's that it's done with respect and in a neighborly format.
Thank you.
And I'd like, thank you. And I think some sort of apology is actually due for putting us through all this. Even tonight, I haven't seen my daughter in 3 days because I worked.
Dr. Block.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll bring it back to
Richard, may I say a couple of words?
This is going to go on all night long.
Yeah, I know.
And I think what I would like to do is to keep this on a very professional level. I understand that there's a lot of angst around this. And I certainly appreciate the desire everyone to get their comments in. But you have to remind yourselves that this is an action that the Planning Commission needs to take. And we need to take it based on the evidence and the testimony that's been given to us tonight. And we'll try to make it as professional as we possibly can.
Yes, I understand.
So with that, any further comments from the Planning Commission? Aaron?
Diane had her hand up first. She can go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this one's for Trevor. Trevor, if we, start a motion and we need the applicant to provide additional information and project modifications, what does that mean? I mean, I know what it means, but in your mind, what would that be for the applicants and for Julian Berg?
Yeah, so I do have alternative motion B in the staff report at the top of page 10. And it sort of provides a framework for continuing this hearing to the September 21st meeting and request that the applicant provide blank. And so it might be, that the applicant provide alternative designs, that they it could be, I've heard talk about, kind of working with the neighbors a little bit more to come up with an alternative design. That might not be possible in 1 month. So, you might ask Julian, because the advantage of continuing to a specific meeting would be that we don't have to renotice the meeting. We could continue it for meeting after meeting, but I think people would appreciate knowing, when to expect the next meeting. So you might ask the applicants when they think they could come back with an alternative, if they're willing to do that. And so that would be my suggestion, is to, consider whether it's, 1 month or 2 months, and continue it to a date specific for the next hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And then I guess this is for Trevor and any more tenured members of the commission. I guess I'm struggling with the benefits, the advantages and disadvantages of alternative motion B and C. One thing backing up, we would need to find out, do the applicants even have a willingness to pursue motion B, right? If that were an option. But is it, I guess, what's the disadvantage of denying it and then the applicant being able to reapply it once they've had a chance to do all these things we're suggesting? It would be renoticed. What are the pros and the cons, I guess, of that approach, Trevor?
Absolutely. And I think that's a very good question. If it's gonna have to go back, for several months, maybe alternative C would be a better option. So there's not a huge difference. And so for the reason I included the language to deny it without prejudice is that would allow the applicant to come back with a similar application and whenever they are ready to do so. They would have to pay a new deposit and submit a new application, but it doesn't particularly add to the cost because they're going to be responsible for all the costs, whether it's continued or whether they submit a new application, regardless. So I think, so I think if it's going to be more than a couple of months, motion C might be better, and then renoticing the neighbors, and they'll know that they don't have to necessarily worry about it until there's a new application and new notices go out. So I would say it depends on the timing.
And then with that, it is appealable to the Coastal Commission with the LCP. Does denial factor into that at all? How does that?
Yes, that's another good question. So first it would be appealed to the City Council. And then it would be appealable to the Coastal Commission, but most denials are not appealable to the Coastal Commission. There are certain circumstances for large projects. I would have to look at the specifics, but I don't think a denial of this project would be appealable to the Coastal Commission.
I'm just referencing page 1 of the staff report at the bottom, Trevor, just to help me, and I apologize, this is extending the meeting, but it says, furthermore, this project is appealable to the Coastal Commission for the city's LCP. What am I
guess that should be reworded to say approval of this project would be appealable to the Coastal Commission.
Gotcha.
And one thing I might point out too is that a Coastal Commission appeal process is a two-step process. First, they would have to find that there's merit, that there's a significant, a substantial issue with the appeal, and the Coastal Act does not protect private views. So that would not, now they do protect night sky and lighting, and they do protect public views. And so that, they might find merit on that. But so I just point that out.
Okay, I guess with all that, just as a final comment from me, I guess I feel it's cleaner to do an outright denial versus kind of this nebulous thing, just given the timing. But I'm open to, I guess, input from the applicants if that's the commission's desire.
Richard, just let me know when I can speak. I have some thoughts on the timeline, and
I was just about to ask you, number one, is the applicant willing to look at alternatives? And if so, then what do you believe would be your estimated schedule for looking at those alternatives?
Yes, we are absolutely willing to look at alternatives. I did want to offer another option, is to give me some clear direction, because there are so many unknowns as I do these projects, and there's a lot of time and energy and cost to my clients to go through all these motions. Having some clear direction is extremely helpful. What I would propose is an approval of the master bedroom addition and the office and first floor bath addition, and then coming back with some alternatives to the crow's nest. If the Vanderpools would like to proceed with that route, depending on the direction you guys would want to go with that, I could probably have revised drawings by the September, I believe it was the 21st meeting. I think that would be doable, but safer might be the October meeting. I think that's absolutely doable to have a revised package to you guys. And please note that the site's really tight, given the septic area, the front setbacks, the side setbacks. So we are limited as to where we can do add-on space. Some of the drawings that were, quick outlines that were depicted by the neighbors just frankly aren't feasible because of the front setback. So I did look at that with the Vanderpools in the past. So, we've truly thought we were doing a tasteful project here. So, I apologize for all the criticism we've received. It's not easy for us to hear either, given the amount of time. So anyway, yeah, we can make some revisions. And I do appreciate everybody's passion and, thoughts on this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know these are tough ones, no doubt. Okay, so what I heard was that realistically and what makes the most sense is probably to look at this again in October. And based on the discussion that we just had, then we would need a motion to proceed. So the alternatives are shown on page 10, I think Trevor said. And so do I hear a motion?
Tom has his hand up, Richard.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
Richard.
I've lost you.
No problem.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to point out, I think with the new ADUs that we have coming in here, everybody with a view could actually add 10 feet and suddenly all of their views are gone. It's just, this is what's going to happen all over town. And I think you could add 8 feet easily out for either direction, or you can cantilever further. I don't know. I think views are huge and neighbors are huge. And I'm hoping that you guys could figure it out. That's just my input. I didn't want to assume that the west side is okay. That's what I wanted to clear up right there from what I heard.
Okay. Diane?
Julian mentioned that he wanted a couple things approved tonight, and that can't happen, with these motions that we might make. So we need to make some kind of motion that requests design changes. And I think the sooner the better if, he can do it in a month. So, Aaron, and then we haven't heard from Tristan what he feels like. But the view thing is out there, so we just have to, all of us, neighbors, planning commission, the Vanderpools, the neighbors, and, you know, the architect, all really have to think about it. And the point that Tom brought up about the ADUs is valid.
Okay, thank you. I'm still looking for a motion.
I guess I'm not allowed to speak, but I was hoping for some sort of a motion where we could get approval for the front porch, the office, home office and bath addition, and the master bedroom, you know, small addition towards the south. And then the cupola, you know, or crow's nest would be, in my mind, significantly revised. I need to speak with the Vanderpools about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand. Tristan.
I guess we need to give, I feel like it's fair of us to give the applicant some specific things that they, not just say, oh, you need to come back with some alternatives, but we need to say specifically which parts of the project, I think, which is sort of what Julian is saying, which parts of the project we are okay with, and which parts of the project need to be redesigned, to give him some specific sideboards and guidelines as to what we want to see when they come back. And I think, in my opinion, specifically, I would approve the entryway and whatnot, but the crow's nest addition, the crow's nest addition, I would ask that to be cut, and the addition westward, I could actually go either way on that. And so, but I'm open to what the other commissioners think about that piece of it.
Thank you. Aaron?
I'm happy to offer specifics. I am not a fan of a piecemeal approval process. I want to see a holistic presentation of what the entire project will look like at completion. I'm not comfortable approving one thing and then having no idea what the rest will look like. I don't think that's fair to anybody. So I'm not willing for that. Specifically for me, my issues are the size exceeding the 2,000 square foot guideline in town. I feel that's extremely important within kind of the traditional city limits of town, where it's kind of the more residential setting. I don't feel it's compatible, the bulk and the character, with the living space, crow's nest, bedroom, whatever that is. I have concerns over the views that impact both the neighbors, and I also have a significant amount of concern over views from public spaces, specifically walking down Edwards with the Western Addition. That has a bigger impact, I think. I invite anybody to go out and look at that. So those are kind of my things, and I'm, again, of the opinion that I think it's the cleanest thing to do an outright denial and then allow the applicant to come back, do it without prejudice, as Trevor suggested, and then with these findings, they have some things. They're certainly welcome to reach out. I believe that would be appropriate to the Planning Commission prior to submitting it again to get a temperament. I don't know if that's doable before things are finalized, before a whole lot more is invested. Because, again, it is a beautiful design. I just, like, I can't remember who said it. Great design, wrong place. So that's my headspace right now.
Thank you. Tom, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just thought of something. I mean, if the entryway is wonderful, and but I kind of agree with Aaron there in regards to piecemeal. But if I had to say something, the entryway looks great. I think that the second floor is going to be played with again. I don't want to just say that's all right, because you could then play with it. So anyway, from feedback point of view, it's a beautiful entryway, and I look forward to seeing it again with other changes. And yeah, however to help make things happen, I'm down with helping. But I hope that there would be a neighborly approach, or at least, people would be aware of what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane.
So I just have one more idea, the garage. Julian, you should look at the garage. Maybe something can be done there, and then we're not going to go make it a bulkier project, and we can save some of the views. So there's a lot of space there.
Thank you. So my brief opinion is that I agree with Aaron. I don't think we should piecemeal this. I think by the time we're done, this is such an integrated design that pulling pieces out may or may not be of any benefit, not only to us, but to the public. And I'm not an architect, don't even claim to be close to one. And I would leave that to the agent and Sherry and Chuck to figure out how best to do it. So having said that, and again, we still need to make a motion this evening. But I don't feel like I need to reject the design outright, because I think there are some facets of it which are very amenable. But at the same time, I think that the applicant and the agent need to come back with some alternatives. So in the absence of any other motion, okay, I see a hand. Aaron?
I'm happy to make one.
Okay.
But you're welcome. All right, so based on application materials and information included in the staff report and based on public testimony, I find that the project is not consistent with Trinidad's local coastal program because design review, specifically H, the size and the bulk and character of it, and view protection finding B, the public access as well as the residential views, cannot be made. And I move to deny the project as proposed without prejudice. And I'll add that I hope to see it back.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Diane, you second it?
I was on mute. I will second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say either aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I want to thank everybody for patience and your desire to make our town as beautiful and as pleasant as possible for everyone. I know these are very, very difficult issues to deal with, but I really appreciate your participation this evening. And I will echo what Aaron said. I really hope to see this come back to us as soon as possible. So thanks, everyone. It is 8:14. Why don't we take just a 5-minute break and then come back and we'll continue with our next agenda item. And I know everyone will stick around for some exciting general plan issues. All right, thank you. 5 minutes. 8:19. Okay, 8:19. Got everyone back but Diane. And well, Tristan too.
We've got his crab back, it looks like.
Oh, there he is. Gee, we lost some people.
It is still 2 screens worth though on my device here.
Interesting. All right, well, Diane, I'm sure we'll be back very soon. Why don't we begin? I'd like to keep things from turning into a midnight run. Next item on our agenda is item 3, housing-related zoning ordinance update. Discussion regarding a zoning ordinance amendment to implement programs within the city's adopted housing element. Trevor, I'll turn it over to you for a staff report.
Sure, thank you. So this is basically the same zoning ordinance amendment that was presented at the last meeting. As mentioned then, these are amendments to bring the city zoning ordinance into conformance with recent state laws. So and most of them are pretty straightforward. And so in the last meeting, I provided a summary of the different amendments and the different uses that were being addressed. For this staff report, I just highlighted where I made changes in the language because I want to maintain the track changes moving forward because we have to track all the changes from the existing amendment. And so my staff report mainly addresses issues and questions that came up at the last meeting. So, for example, Richard had a question about the overlap in the number of children allowed at the daycare homes. And so it's sort of, so you have to kind of look at the language in the regulations. So really small family daycare homes are up to 6 children, and large family daycare homes are up to 12, but the law allows you to have 2 additional kids in certain circumstances, hence the overlap of 8 to 14. And then, so body feet, this was kind of an interesting one because body feet is used in so many of these definitions, yet I can't find a definition of body feet. But when I talked to the building inspector, it seemed like apparently it's common knowledge that or it's self-explanatory, either way you want to look at it, that that basically means without any extension. So on the road, it's important for the tongue length for the hookup for towing these things, but also it makes a difference when you install them and then you start adding eaves and patios and awnings and things like that. So it wouldn't include that. So that's where that is. Since I didn't find an easy definition I could copy, I didn't include one, but I think we could. If you would like to, if you think that's important, but I do think it's important to keep body feet in the definition, even though it's not in every definition I saw. Park trailer, when I went back to look at the definitions, so we had talked about adding the definition of park trailer, but you can see that why I didn't include it is because it adds 3 pages almost to 2.5 pages to the definition, because then it refers to other definitions. So I thought maybe the easiest thing would be to actually pare down the entire definition, and I included a potential alternative at the bottom of page 2 there and just not use the regulatory language for this one. I think most people know what RVs are. So maybe we don't have to get into that much detail. Non-medical. So that is, again, not defined in the state code, but definitely would be overseen as part of the licensing for those things. So it's not something I think we need to get into. Aaron asked a good question about how are JADUs and SROs different, and are SROs JADUs, and there does seem to be some overlap in the definition, but I think the key is that a JADU is located within an existing single family home, and single room occupancy is basically multifamily kind of development. So I think they're differentiated in the existing definition, but I think the one question that comes up is that the only zone that single room occupancy units are allowed in is the planned development zone. There are single family residences in the planned development zone. Could one of those be divided up into SROs? And so, if you want to clarify that in the definitions, I suggested maybe adding not within a single family dwelling. But that would preclude that. So I think if you want to allow single family dwelling to be divided up into SROs, I think the definitions are fine as they are. And then we talked about numerical or density limits on single room occupancy units. You guys wanted to think about that a little bit longer. I didn't have a whole lot of additional information to add, except it seems like 10 is a common dividing line between, where on-site management is required. So I assume once you get to 10, then you start having more nuisance issues in terms of noise and traffic and those sorts of things. So I think that's why it's limited. But I think in Trinidad, they all require a use permit, so you can limit it anyway on a case-by-case basis, and they're going to be limited by septic systems. So, may not be necessary to put a limit on, but maybe in a town as small as Trinidad, 10 is what's appropriate. I don't have a strong recommendation either way on that. And then there was also a suggestion to encourage permeable paving. And I happened to be working on the stormwater map and the LID and filtration areas, and realized that that's actually a little bit more complicated because there's going to be different areas where we want to encourage that or not. So my suggestion is to not include that language at this point. So the next step is, either you make some additional changes to it and you want to see it back, or if you're happy with it as is or with some minor changes, you can make the next step would be a recommendation to the city council on adopting the zoning ordinance amendment. They would have a first and second reading, and then it would have to go to the coastal commission. So either continue to work on it, or pass it along to the city council at this point.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Any questions, comments, clarifications from planning commissioners? And we still don't have Diane back. Where are you, Diane?
I know, I think she's caring for Glenn right now, so she might be tied up with that.
Okay, I understand.
I had one question, probably not, I shouldn't say that. I had a question that came to mind right now. Between page 2 and 3, the park trailer says 400, but then your definition 320, just curious. The existing ordinance has 320 in it. I mean, it's fine, just a comment on that. The body feet stuff made sense to me. For the SROs, I like the idea of leaving it as is, but adding in the piece about not within a single family. And then also, I did appreciate your bullet point at the end there that anything's still going to come before us anyway. any of those proposed SROs. So we'll have a chance there, but it'd be easier if we just kind of, if we think there should be a limit. I just can't think of a lot of places where you could even squeeze 10 in with a remote chance of septic in town currently as it exists, but that's it. So, I mean, from my perspective, I think it's pretty much ready to go.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I wanted to thank Trevor for the further details, but otherwise I think it's pretty much ready to go as well. And yeah, I guess with regard to the SRO, the limit of 10 people, I mean, I don't think we need to put a limit on it, just given the septic. I don't think it's worth spelling out.
Any other comments, questions? I just had one, well, make one comment. Yeah, I think what both Tristan and Aaron said makes a lot of sense. That's fine. I think it's about ready for a city council review. Although, Trevor, I did have a question on page 14. I guess I missed this, or it just wasn't in my consciousness at the time, having to do with mobile buildings. And the first question is just to make it clear for everyone, I call it the trailer park or the permanent residency trailer park within the town, that is not consistent with this set of definitions. Is that correct?
Well, so when you mentioned page 14, the reason I took it out of here is because I think it's covered in the definitions, is that mobile homes or manufactured homes are single family homes if they're on a foundation. But in terms of the existing RV parks, it's not so much that our RVs are not in compliance, it's that the zoning is for transient use, and they have, so it's visitor services, which is for, a transient use, but they now have permanent residence. So it's not about the structures, but the use. Does that answer your question?
Well, I have multiple questions about the whole idea. Yes, I see where you deleted the actual definition. I get that. And I understand the intent that a mobile building is essentially temporary. But I guess as I got into it, I just wanted to make sure, as I said, that the visitor services facility that we have do not fall under this category or aren't related to this in terms of mobile homes.
No, and really, I mean, an RVs are not on permanent foundations, so are not mobile homes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that and make that clear. The other thing is,
and they do Hidden Creek. I mean, I think both of them actually do have actual residences on them for a caretaker. And then the Hidden Creek RV park at least does have some of those park model units, park trailers.
The final question on this has to do with mobile buildings in the operation of the harbor. And one of the things here it says is that the building must be removed from the harbor area between October 1st and April 15th of each year. I recognize that the harbor area will soon most likely go into federal trust, but do we actually have a requirement that the trailer down there has to be removed during that time period?
No. And is that a mobile building or is it a shed? I've actually never considered that issue. I've sort of always thought of it as a shed, but it was always temporary because they moved they demolished the bait shop when they put in the new pier, and the existing bait shop is intended to be temporary until they build their interpretive center.
Maybe I'm splitting hairs when I don't need to, but that was essentially my concern was, is there something that we need to do or not do? I don't know. I don't know the answer to it.
It seems like the first one that they removed was a mobile home, and now the other one that's down there is a shed with a sliding door. That's what I think. I'm down there quite a bit.
I think
We could remove the last sentence in there saying it has to be removed, and then but I don't think we want a bunch of those popping up down there.
Well, I mean, if it's just a shed down there, which I also think is, then it doesn't really apply, or this mobile building doesn't really apply to it.
I've heard it as if it has a license plate, then it's one thing. If it doesn't have a license plate, then it's another thing. One is state taxed, or vehicle tax.
I think maybe just leave it as is. That way, in case a different type of building were to ever get added down there, we wouldn't know. We'd still have the teeth to at least get it removed temporarily. Plans change. Who knows if the interpretive center, what the timing on that is.
Oh yeah, I was just looking for a little bit of clarification as to exactly what that meant. I'm fine with leaving it too. That's not a big deal. Any other comments, questions from? Yes, Diane. Welcome back.
Sorry, I had a medical issue with my husband. So Trevor, the mobile home parks, have you evaluated or, counted the homes or done any kind of a survey on that?
No, I just, we do know, we know how many spaces they're permitted for. Hidden Creek actually has reduced their residents and spaces recently so that they could get because their septic system, they were using too much water. So they have their water use way down. They've reduced the number of spaces. But they are, so the RV parks and mobile home parks are a little odd because a lot of them are regulated by the state. So, the number of spaces they can have, the hookups, the utilities, sanitation, a lot of these things are regulated by the state, and there's not a lot of local control, except that they are still subject to the Coastal Act. So we still do have Coastal Development Permit Authority over them, but they're definitely a little bit of a gray area. But no, I have not done a detailed assessment of what's out there, particularly the Trinidad Bay trailer courts, because it just hasn't, Hidden Creek, I have site plans because we've, been dealing with the septic system for a while. So I know a little bit more about what's going on out there. But it's definitely, it is an issue that we need to address. And I think work with the property owners on how to address that.
Thank you, because the parking is an issue. They are overtaking the parking on the side of the market. And some of them have cars that are sticking out, of the whole area. So it would be something that we need to look at before we do the whole approval of this design, the housing element, because that's where lots of houses are, and I don't know, I was asked by a community member to call the sheriff because of some of the parking. I didn't do it, but I referred it to Nelson at the market to try and, see what the issue was. And, it is summer, but still, that's something we really need to look at. And I did drive by, is Hidden Creek the farthest one out?
It's the one that's on the other side, the east side of the freeway. Just east of the freeway on West Haven. So like just south of the Rotwein's place.
Yeah, that one needs to be looked at too. Yeah, because one of the maintenance workers in town was worried about the septic because there was some water and other stuff coming under the bridge. So I don't know if that got taken care of or not, but it's not an ADU, it's not a tiny home, and I don't know what we can do except, deal with the state, I guess, to make sure it's healthy for the community.
Yes, we're definitely, there were some issues in the wet weather with Hidden Creek's RV system. But there are springs up there on that hillside, and there's always water running down the hillside. Health department has tested it multiple times based on complaints. And it does not turn up with bacteria levels. And they have their water use down from, I think it was a maximum of like 6,000 gallons a day, and they've got it down to like 1,000 gallons a day now. So I think, they might still have to do some modifications to their septic systems, but I'm guessing in the dry season, it's fine right now.
Yeah, I just thought as part of this housing element, we need to look at those parks because they're a big part of the town.
I do. I think you're right. I think we need to look at that, but I think that's more of a longer range planning issue with the general plan, as opposed to this is very specific, implementing certain state laws that don't affect the RV parks.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on this particular agenda item. I see no hands raised, so I'll bring it back to the commission. Any further discussion?
So Trevor, just for clarity, you're looking for what from us at this point? If we're comfortable with it, with those couple minor changes, then just a motion to that effect?
Yeah, so, and there is a sample motion there at the bottom of page 6 in the staff report. I do want to clarify, so I will look at the square footages for RVs and park trailer. I think the state definition of RV is 320 feet, but it includes park trailers that are allowed to be 400 square feet. So it just may be a little bit wording in that definition to clarify that there is that is whatever the state definition says, basically. And then I would like to get clarification. So Aaron suggested adding the language not within a single family dwelling to the definition of single room occupancy units, which would mean that a single family dwelling couldn't be converted into single room occupancy units. And so I just want to get some input from other commissioners on making that change.
Well, I'm fine with that, for what it's worth.
Yeah, me too.
Sure. Yeah, we'll stick that in there.
Okay. Any other comments? Or don't hear any? Okay. Do I hear a motion? I'll make the motion. Based on the information provided in the staff report in the public hearing, and whereas the zoning ordinance amendment implements state law and implementation programs in the city's adopted housing element, I move to recommend to the city council that they adopt the proposed zoning ordinance amendment and send it to the Coastal Commission for certification. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye or raise your hand by affirmation.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, thank you, Trevor. All right. Where are we? We are 8:45. Trevor, you want to go through this next one?
If you're game, I'm game. I guess I'll point out too, we do have an extra Wednesday in between our meetings. If you'd rather have a special study session, or if you want to power through this, I don't know how much effort this particular issue will take. We could at least start the discussion tonight and see where it goes. I'm open to whatever you guys want to do.
Okay. I saw a thumbs up from Aaron and a thumbs up from Diane. Whoa, thumbs up from Tristan.
Yeah, we can carry on.
Okay. Wow.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we'll be able to get through this one tonight, but we can at least discuss it.
I agree. I do have a lot of concerns that this is more complicated than I am able to absorb even tonight, much less when I read it earlier twice today. So I got lots of questions. So yes. Okay. So having said all of that, let's move on and we'll continue for at least another 15 minutes or so. Next item on our agenda is a general plan update for the circulation element, discussion of the city's water service area, sub-area C. Trevor?
Yeah, so, I mean, the primary question with this is whether to reduce the size of sub-area C. And I have gone back and forth myself on this, and so that might be why you're not getting a strong direction from the staff report. And obviously, and I start to write about it, and then I'm like, oh, well, then I have to talk about spheres of influence, and I have to talk about our water policy, and so it's definitely, water is obviously an issue we've been talking a lot about. We have a lot of more information on the city's supply. And so, yeah, so I just, so the idea here was to present you with a bunch of background information. So bottom line is the city would not, so the water studies that were done in 2019 estimated that the city has a surplus production capacity of, I think it was 8,000 gallons per day in the peak, at the peak months, which tends to be July and August in Trinidad. And that's not as simple as it sounds either, because there's, certainly the city has a much larger water right. There are additional improvements that can be made to the water plant in terms of like backwashing the filters, for example. So there's some kind of operational changes that can be made that can affect that, certainly. And we don't really have a great idea of, what the lowest return flows on Luffenholz that we can expect, and droughts seem to be getting worse. So that's an issue. So that's a reason to be cautious. But really at this point, it seems like the limiting factor is really the city's intake. So there's a gravel infiltration gallery in the bed of Luffenholz Creek. And as flows get lower, their ability to pump water out of that infiltration gallery, even though there's water above that level, it just gets harder to pump out. And so there's probably some fixes that can be made to that. There's, leaking pipes can be fixed. So it's a dynamic issue. The city is working on additional water storage. So, there's a lot of unknowns in both that could increase the city supply or decrease the city supply. So, but based on that 48,000 gallons per day of excess production capacity in the peak month, that capacity is not enough to serve all of sub area C. And the Coastal Commission added this policy that says we have to reserve remaining capacity for coastal aquifer uses, basically sub area C. And so that policy that was added, and we're probably going to have this discussion with the Coastal Commission because it's not in our current general plan update. And the city council did not agree with adding that policy, but just to keep the CAL FIRE water line extension process moving, they agreed to it. So it was kind of a controversial policy at the time, but it could be read to mean that the city can't extend water anywhere besides city limits because it already doesn't have enough capacities for sub area C. So that would be the reason to decrease sub area C. But again, I think it's not that simple. There are other we don't know exactly how much water sub area C would use. Do we just reserve capacity for vacant parcels? Do we only reserve capacity for the coastal act priority uses, which not all the uses in that area are? It is an area that I think would be beneficial for the city to annex at some point for both the land use control as well as the potential tax benefits. And, I have become over the years more of an advocate for annexation. I think, the city's population, the city's tax base may not be sustainable at the current size, especially with more and more state laws that increase the city's responsibilities. So I do think that area has some, high annexation potential if the city can provide water or find ways to provide water. So anyway, that's just an overview, and I'd like to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Peterson.
With regard to annexation, this is just some background info that I'm unfamiliar with. You noted that there's, I guess maybe you could you explain like this revenue sharing agreement with the county and how that would impact with like vacant parcels versus built out parcels and things like that?
Yeah, good question. So I haven't looked at the revenue sharing agreement in a while. It's from 1980 or late 70s. But basically it says if the city is going to annex an area, the county is going to keep the existing property taxes on the existing development. So, or a portion of the taxes on the existing development. So if the city annexes, like for example, if you look at, sub area A or B, most of those parcels are already developed. And then the city would have to provide additional services to those areas. So there's additional costs in terms of road maintenance and water line extensions and things like that. But it wouldn't get a lot of property tax because the county is going to keep a portion of the existing property tax. So it makes more sense to annex vacant parcels because the city gets to keep all the property tax on any improvements that are made after annexation. So if a house is added onto or a new house is built, then the city gets those property taxes. My understanding is that all sales and TOT taxes, though, immediately go to the city, which is why Area C is potentially quite lucrative in that sense. But I think again, the city's population size, it's difficult to find planning commissioners and city council members. So it's not just about money. It's also, there's other benefits to annexation in terms of, the population and land use control and things like that as well.
I had
Go ahead.
a couple. That's interesting poison pill there on taking the county stuff that's in there, keeping the tax revenue, but having to provide the services. So I guess two questions. The first one is the risk of not addressing or adjusting the service boundary right now. The risk of just leaving it as is with our current water policies. We don't have the capacity to meet it. If we do nothing, what are the risks? That's the first question.
And part of it may depend on what the Coastal Commission does with that policy 27A in our update. I think that the city council report I provided you, I think that provides an argument that even if you extended services to some parcels in area, say A or B, that wouldn't remove capacity for area C, because they already have sources of water, growth. This is at build out. So my analysis of that the city can't provide water, that entire area is at build out. And we're not going to be at build out for decades, and who knows what's going to happen there. So I think that we could argue the point, but extension of water would require coastal development permits, potentially LCP amendment. That's what happened with CAL FIRE. So I guess I can't really answer that question. I don't know what the risk is at this point.
Obviously, just a comment, the calculus of our water limitation will potentially change with the storage grants, the storage water grants that are being worked on right now by the city. I don't know what that'll do. And then if we do choose to reduce it right now, right, to this, say, as an example, a sphere of influence, like you had suggested, how difficult is it to then increase it again and grab that piece back? Are there any disadvantages to doing that? The water service, that doesn't go through LAFCO, nothing along those lines. That's strictly an annexation issue, right?
The water service area. So the sphere of influence is approved by LAFCO. Right now, they wouldn't let us extend water outside the sphere of influence anyway, unless it was an emergency. So right now, unless we annex that area, we couldn't extend services.
Right.
I think, it's easier to shrink something than it is to grow something. So to shrink it doesn't require necessarily a whole lot of analysis, other than maybe what's in here and some additional information. To then later extend the area would probably require substantial additional analysis. So that might be a disadvantage of shrinking it.
And does Emerald Forest fall currently in the sphere of influence or not? Not. Okay, so they're past that in the Zone C. Okay. I think that was all right now off the top of my head. Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Diane?
So Trevor, what does the water committee want to do with the sphere of influence in some of these areas? Do they have, they've dug into it for a while.
I don't think the water committee has addressed this specific issue, but if you want to refer it to them, you could do that.
And are we getting more comments from the sphere of influence residents than the ones out in C, up Patrick's Point Drive?
Not necessarily. So, part of what spurred this, well, obviously the hotel, so that was the primary driving force behind this whole policy of outside city hookups and looking at the water system. But during the drought, that was 5 to 10 years ago, there was a significant uptick in requests for city water from people whose wells have gone dry within the service area. So, but at that point, we couldn't extend water, unless there was some sort of prior agreement, which did turn out with 1 or 2 spaces. But so it's, it's, this area is limited in water. In terms of, from what I know of the history, most people outside Trinidad, when, at least in the past, when asked, they did not want to be part of Trinidad. I don't know if that's changed, or if the city really was serious about annexing. I would, public education should be a part of that, kind of some outreach. Because I think there might be some benefits that people don't recognize. But mostly it would be the water, because the city doesn't provide a whole lot of services other than that. And a lot of people already have water, so they don't necessarily have an incentive to want to be in the city.
Okay.
So I have a couple of real simple things first, and then get into more complicated issues. On the figure 14, I think what we need to do is, because this map is so important in color, that we should have a disclaimer on here saying that this map is not valid if it's printed in black and white, because you can't read this otherwise. And I think there's another accessibility issue here too, and that is that while I understand the color codes, I think it would be very useful that where the color code is located, that we also put the specific sub-area letter there as well, because some people just can't discriminate between B1 and B2. And that would, I think, be a real issue for some. So those are the simple things. The other thing that I guess I was missing in all of this, and maybe it's just because I haven't looked at it in enough depth, is when I look at C, and from what you have said, that we don't have enough water to service all of C. I get that. But what I don't see is, when I look at the options that were like the options on page 3, the remaining water production capacity, I see option 1, which is service area C vacant parcels. I get that, but I don't see an option for the entire area. I guess what I'm trying to say is, how much water would be for a total build out of area C? And then once we know that, can we then pare down what we think, for example, that maybe we could write up or come up with a model that says that for vacant parcels, this is your maximum amount of water that you are allocated. And like you said, maybe it's better to keep all of C and then reduce it later, rather than trying to put more back in. So I'm missing that one piece. Do we have that somewhere? You're on mute, Trevor.
I do. It was in the water demand assessment, and
yeah.
So I will definitely get you guys a copy of that. And it's so when I try and go to the city's website, it's not loading for me, but you say it's back online? someone said they were accessing it from the like the link, meeting link from the city
I think
calendar.
parts of it are functional, parts are still in Russian, or parts are still just unattainable.
It's very limited right now. But the main page, we requested that the Planning Commission information be posted, and our person did that for us.
Okay, that's funny.
It's very unreliable.
Okay, and maybe I need to clear my cache or something, because it won't load I can't load anything. But anyway, normally the water reports are all available on the city's website, but I can certainly the water demand assessment, and I could pull up the number for you, just for fun.
I guess getting back to my point, with all this data that we might be making a decision on now was not designed with the anticipated water storage development that those grants are coming through, and I don't know how impactful that will be. The challenge for Trinidad, more for me, for our water resiliency, isn't so much what the flow rate is; it's what our reserve capacity is. We can have a great flow, but if I know where to store it, so that's kind of, and I don't know if we'll ever get there. But that's why I'm having a little bit of a hard time with modifying this, with having so many moving pieces still.
No, and I think it originally came up as a suggestion, as something we could do, which is why I've pursued this. As I've gone through all this data and all these unknowns and all these complexities, I'm not necessarily inclined to change it, because I think there are so many unknowns. So yeah, and I think that there are, if the city annexed that area, yes, we could put maximums on people's use. We could potentially, continue. They all have their own existing water systems that could potentially still be used, and the city could just supplement it. We could require that they store, that they have enough storage to get them through the dry season, for example, which is what they do with cannabis projects, for example. So there might be a lot of other options to consider. And, like I said, I think shrinking it is, that's easy, but to try and expand it again later would be more difficult. Just for the numbers for you. So, one, the build out potential water use is difficult to estimate for that area, as I mentioned in there. But so I have a peak demand estimated of 35,000 gallons per day. But you would have to add that to the additional demand in the city at build out of 25,000 gallons per day. And that's during July, that's peak demand. So, you're adding 35 and 25, and that exceeds the 40 or 48,000 gallons per day we have.
Yeah, I did find it. It's in your staff report on page 7. So I just missed it.
Okay. Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers my question. So what? I guess I first of all, I do like the idea of getting the water advisory committee to weigh in on this. Why are you shaking your head, Aaron?
Because I'm going to have to see it again.
Yeah.
Since I'm on the committee.
I know. Yeah, that's the problem. If you walk away from this stuff for a couple of months, it gets very complicated and you forget everything. But I think it's important. I mean, I'd rather have their input than not. And I guess, from a policy standpoint, it would seem to me that we should try to. Well, first of all, we have to take care of the Coastal Commission's 27A policy. That's without, we can't do anything about that. And then I guess I was looking at some way that we might be able to provide some sort of limitation on water for each of the parcels in C, so that we could maximize the number that we could allocate to, with the intent, just as you said, that if you say you're given 3,000 gallons per day and you need 4 for undeveloped parcel, you've got to figure out where you get the other 1,000, whether it's through a reservoir, wherever, a well. So I guess that's, just very, very top down looking at this, that would seem to me that might be the easiest way to try to put together a policy. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
So I guess for some clarification, we've sort of just been discussing potentially shrinking the area C. So if we shrink area C and then potentially expanding it later, which could be more difficult, does that mean if we shrunk it now and then we wanted to annex what is all of area C now later, that would be more difficult to annex it then than if it were already existing as area C to annex? Okay.
I believe so. The annexation would be complicated anyway, but because it's already in the city's service area, I think that would make it a little easier.
Even more so. Okay.
Any other comments, questions from, yes, Diane?
Trevor, we can't annex service area C. We can't do the annexation.
I mean, potentially you could. I think right now though, the city would have to show that it has the capacity to serve that area with water, and so how we would do that is somewhat of an unknown right now.
So with storage tanks and CAL FIRE behind us, because they could get the work on the storage tanks because they need water for their business. I think we should annex now, because it's a tax, and get the area to build storage or get the storage grants and get it going. I mean, it's an area that the Coastal Commission wants developed, right?
Yeah. And I imagine that, part of the reason some of those parcels haven't been developed or further developed is lack of water.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying we should do it now and not reduce it. And then, like Tristan said, go back and try and fix it. We battled this annexation thing a couple years ago. And, Trinidad is just going to grow. So we will have a water tax for the visitors. Just kidding. But I think the storage capacity things, and Humboldt State's got one, I want to go see it. We need to get those in gear. And I think CAL FIRE would be a good spot to start some of that in that, service area C. I'm not really into reducing areas. I think we just need to leave it alone because it's such a touchy issue right now. I'd rather expand and make people buy in and do the work with all of us as a community. Okay. I'll be your annexation sign holder.
Yeah, I was asking them when they were putting in that pipe, like how come they only put in like a 2-inch pipe? And it's a no-brainer. If it's going up there, everybody's going to get water up there if we can swing it. If the rancheria gets water and then we get into that, for sure it's going to happen, no problem. And so I think it's going to happen. It's already happening, whether it kind of, because the pipe was just laid.
Well, there was a lot of discussion about that. So that is basically an individual service connection is what that pipe is. So a main line is required to be at least 6 inches. The 2 inches, they gave them 2 inches, but I think they estimated they needed an inch and a half just to overcome the friction and, get the amount of water they need. So we wouldn't be hooking up people to that line. And the Coastal Commission made it very clear that that's not something they would approve. And LAFCO, when they approved it, so LAFCO approved it as well. So I think it does sort of increase the impetus to extend water, but that pipe's not going to do it.
But Tom brings up a very good point. Assuming that the Rancheria is successful at agreeing with the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District for the pipeline, what that does is reduce, as far as I know, they would then use that water from Humboldt Bay for all of their Rancheria needs, which would then reduce the amount of water that we sell to the Rancheria. And depending upon who you believe, that could be anywhere from 8,000 to 14 to 20,000 gallons per day. So when you factor that back into the 48,000 gallons, that is the amount that we have to deal with, and then put back in total build out area C, area A, area B, then maybe we're almost there. And I don't know if we've actually made that analysis. So that would be also something that would be very useful to understand.
Have we done an analysis of what the revenue loss would be for the city as well? With if the Rancheria stops buying water, right? I don't know what impact that has. So the trade-off needing to then service area, see if we might be worthwhile.
That's a good point. No, and I think the city is, they do need to embark on a water rate analysis. So they can't, because there are some state laws that limit what can be charged for a service like that, and it has to be what it actually costs to produce it. So I think the city is going to be doing a water rate analysis. It would be good to look at that. Let's see, the Rancheria currently, let's see, so the Rancheria currently uses average peak, only about 8,000, 7,000 gallons per day is what the Rancheria currently uses peak.
And is that inclusive of the casino as well as the residences? So it's a total number. Okay.
Yeah, the casino is almost 3,000 of that.
Okay.
But the other factor is that certainly if they are successful in getting water from Humboldt Bay, the hotel will take more water. I mean, the hotel will go in. So then that adds to that 8,000 by whatever is the estimate for the hotel. And again, that varies from like 8,000 to 20, depending upon who you talk to. So, but the amount that would be reduced, I guess, is what you said, about 8,000 gallons. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Well, just my thoughts. I feel like we're maybe just need to pull this from our active roster for the time being and come back to it later as we get more data. I don't know.
Well, like I said, it's something that came up in the past and was on my list and to consider. And yeah, the more I try and pull data together, the more unknowns there are, and the less inclined I would be. At first, I thought it was a good idea, but now I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I would recommend reducing the area at this point.
Diane, you had a comment?
Well, I think it's time for this water service area to go to a meeting with the water committee and just get a little feedback from them. And Trevor, you could tell them that, we're not into really reducing any areas, and that the Coastal Commission wants Area C developed, and that needs to be looked at because of the future, of Trinidad and the visitors and growing. People are going to put those ADUs down there somewhere. So I'm just thinking, let's just get a little meeting feedback from them, because with all the water issues in the drought, there might be, some other ideas. I just think we have to do storage. We just have to get C out there and start some storage tanks, not just at the plant, but everywhere. Okay.
At this point, let me open it up for public comment just to make sure we don't miss that, and then we can come back and make a decision on where we want to go with this. So is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this agenda item? Okay, don't see anybody. All right. Oh, yes, I see a hand. Robert's iPhone?
Good afternoon. It's Robert Hempstead, Vice Chairman of Trinidad Rancheria.
Hi, Robert.
Sorry, I was working with state parks on towing some vehicles out of Sumegos, dealing with some substance abuse issues there. I did get a chance to listen in this evening and appreciate all the comments. Water is definitely an issue throughout the state of California. And I think that part of the analysis that you guys were discussing of what waters for usage, but also what's also I haven't been talked about or heard talked about, I guess, often is the potential for the leaks, the pipes that have been, I was made aware that apparently there was some pretty significant leaks recently fixed. And that, that's something to obviously look into through the maintenance of your guys' water supply, which would help save a lot of water in the future, and the potential for annexation and having to have that serving of the purpose of being able to serve those individuals. But, the overall, I think, it's a good outline. You guys are starting to get something there. Definitely just need to, I would be curious on, I couldn't remember what the water leakage amount was for the maintenance of the lines. Does anybody, Trevor, just remember that offhand, or?
Yeah, and it varies. Let's see, I've got this.
I do know there was two large ones that were fixed, correct? Just in the last few months.
There were two huge ones that were just fixed. So the total average gallons per day used in the city for the entire water system is about 70,000 gallons per day. Of that, on average, a little over 15,000 gallons a day is loss. So I don't know exactly what percentage that is, but I know it's often above 20%, which is
about 20, yeah.
High. For the size system Trinidad has, and the city is looking at grants to upgrade water lines to reduce that amount.
Right. As it should. And, they hopefully get that number down to the single digits would help exponentially in the future, along with the potential for other storage would be definitely a good way to look forward to. But no, I appreciate you guys. This is a long meeting tonight. It's kind of caught off guard on this one. I seen the agenda and it went on a little bit longer than expected, but some hot topic items definitely. Look forward to listening in the future. So, thanks for my time.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there.
Oh, I'm just out towing anyway. Might as well. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? Just to make sure we have not missed anyone. I don't see anyone, so I'll bring it back to the commissioners. Okay, so Trevor, where do you want to go with this? I think we have more questions than answers at this point. I guess my recommendation is that there's still some, maybe some additional information that we might need to gather, whether or not it's available or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd be interested in getting some input from the Water Advisory Committee. They may know a little bit more about what's going on with the improvements of the water system. But on the other hand, all this information is gonna be as much or more overwhelming and confusing to them than it was to you, because you guys have been working on this. So I don't know. I'm not sure how easy it would be to get their input. I'm happy either way. If you want to do that, like I said, I think there's some benefit to that if we can get them up to speed. On the other hand, maybe just leaving it alone for now. And as we get further down the road, we're going to have to address that policy 27A and what it means with the Coastal Commission. I think that's one piece of the puzzle we're missing. And then, all these grants and projects that the city has ongoing right now with improving the water system is another piece of the puzzle that will be coming hopefully sooner rather than later. And, I don't know if more information on Liffenholtz Creek flows are coming anytime soon, but yeah, so I guess my inclination would be to leave it as is for right now, and maybe seek some input from the Water Advisory Committee at now or maybe at some point in the future.
So is Eli there? Does he have a comment? Or is he gone?
I think he left. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I don't blame him. I think it's good to get it out just to start the discussion so that everybody doesn't just all of a sudden take it by shock. Oh my God, I've never heard this. No, this is the direction we're going. And I don't think it hurts to start leaking that and start telling people. And, blame the Coastal Commission, blame whatever, but I know people get upset when you start talking about change of any kind.
And then Trevor, can you reach out? I'd just be curious to hear any changes they've found with the leaks per month now that, or at least ask them, let's capture that data and just hear it. Because again, that's even more math. That's a great, phenomenal point. That may have changed our math again on another factor.
Well, the leaks that were just fixed were not, they were massive leaks that were new leaks, basically broken lines, as opposed to the 20% is more just cracks and bad valves and
gotcha. Okay.
small leaks throughout the system, as opposed to these two. So, fixing those two leaks isn't necessarily going to change that 20%.
Got it. Okay.
So maybe I would suggest, does it make sense? Let me put it that way. Does it make sense to at least perhaps take a look at this in the near term, next couple of months again? It would be very useful to get some indication that based on the type of grants that we're going after and the amount of water line that we are going to be able to replace or repair, that there may be some way of reducing or estimating our leak rate, so that we can maybe put that in as a factor that we can kind of refine our analysis, and then take a look at what we can do about Area C. And there may be some more information available on storage And we should have a better understanding maybe in a couple of months of some of those issues. So I guess I would recommend that we, I guess the definition is we table this for several months until we're able to get more information.
Yeah, and I think we'll be submitting another round of drafts to the Coastal Commission staff soon for comment, and so I can start the conversation with them about policy 27A and how they're going to interpret that and what they think that means for the city.
Okay, fair enough. Diane.
So Trevor, can the city water workers give us some reports? I mean, we could just have them write up something, what the leak was, just, I don't know, maybe an hour's worth. Or what about the 2 new trainees or people that were taking over the water area? They should have some info. They could give that to you and then you could pass that on to us.
Yeah, well, I think, at City Hall with the RVS software, with the billing software, I think they can produce reports that show the amount of leakage. So I think it's a pretty simple piece of data to get.
Okay.
That would probably be available at the end of the billing cycle, at the end of the month.
Thank you, Anton.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else on this subject? On this agenda item, I should say? All right. Thank you very much. Move on then to our next item, which is commissioner reports. Are there any reports from any commissioners? Tom.
We had a first co-ed meeting for the emergency response, and it's slowly being rolled out, and that was today. And didn't really cover much, but things are in the works. And so just want to let you know it's not been forgotten about, but everybody's been busy with the summer. But they did do a lot of work in Willow Creek, and that really helped with the fires, really helped with a lot of organization. So, and it was interesting hearing about how PG&E, their responses and what they're doing now with their automatic texting and stuff. There was I'll look at the notes and give you an update next meeting. Just want to let you know that things are in the works.
Thank you.
Oh, and then the Trails Committee, yeah, everything's going along wonderfully.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other commissioner reports? Okay, hearing none. Staff report.
I don't know that I have too much to add. We continue to work on grant tasks as we can, and but a priority for me is also getting another set of draft elements to the Coastal Commission for comments. So I'm really close on having a whole new set of figures, which has been a hurdle for that. So I would like to bring those back to you, and the circulation element one more time. I've actually been doing a lot of reorganization of the policies and programs in terms of putting them in a more logical order and reclassifying some of them. So those have been my priorities. You should see that at the next meeting. Let's see, I also wanted to mention slipped my mind, I guess. There's a watershed council meeting tonight. Maybe I'll mention that. Tomorrow night. The county they're reviewing their local agency management program, which is their OWTS program. They've had a couple of meetings, haven't been well attended, but they're presenting the results of their water quality monitoring in the West Haven area. And they've been doing the bacteroides sampling, which gives you a human versus cow versus bird versus dog but the results have not been as definitive as you might expect. So that's been kind of interesting. And I guess that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Any changes to future agenda items? We have 1, 2, 5 items on the list currently, all of which are very important and yet always remain our future. So someday. Diane.
So Trevor, or maybe Richard, you know, I think there was an email about a planning commission workshop
Oh, yes.
for the county, and I think we should all go. And Trevor, can you sign us up, or what? How do we do that?
I think you should, you would sign yourself up, use your city. It would be best if you could use your city email. So you might talk to Gabe or Anton about getting access to that again. Use that to sign up because it's only for verified planning commissioners. It's not for the general public. So they'll want to make sure you're a planning commissioner. Although you probably don't need to have a city email, but that might be helpful. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. It's free. If you can take the time, it's a full day, but if you can take the time, I'm sure they'll feed you. And I think it would be really, really beneficial.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. I signed up with that link you sent, Trevor.
Good suggestion. Okay, any other comments on future agenda items?
Well, do we want to have Trevor mentioned there's an extra Wednesday between now and the next month. Is there interest in having an additional meeting, or are we good with it once a month?
What day would that be? That would be
Probably the 31st would be the one in the middle. I was thinking of it more to continue anything we didn't get to tonight. But we could have a general plan workshop. I think I could get you a new draft of the circulation element by then. Though I don't have anything else really that I know of for the September agenda. Although, I need to there are more grant tasks that we need to work on that will be agenda items in the future, but I don't know that I would necessarily have them ready for September. So I don't know that there's necessarily a need to have a special meeting.
Okay, fair enough.
I thought that we heard a lot of good information from both sides tonight for our how we can word our view, or how we can look at view problems, and we could actually spell it out so that people know how we're going to judge a project. And I thought there was some very interesting points. I was going to go over it and just look at them, and I thought that they really did their homework. And so I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing it out. It'd be great if there was some way that future people, when they try to do their new project, they just know this is what we're going to be. They're like really simple. This is what we're going to look at. And I heard that tonight with some of the comments, and really appreciate all the work they did. And because we're going to have it with the vegetation, we're going to have it with everything. So anyway, I'm going to look at it. I did some screenshots and thought it was very interesting. And I don't know where we'd put it in any of this stuff. I mean, that's up to you, Trevor. But I thought that it was pretty spelled out in a couple of things.
Well, I wonder if you want to then relook at the draft design guidelines that you have been working on that you kind of, approve for the time being, but set aside for now and whether you want to revisit those after this discussion.
I would just give us a copy and then we can look at it, or we could pick it up at, for Tristan's Wednesday meeting, which I'm not available. I'm just teasing Tristan, but that would be good because then it, like what Tom said, lots of good things were brought out and points that, people made, and they did their homework. And then we can process that because we've been doing this, Richard and I have been doing this for 8 years, probably.
That's a good suggestion. It might be very useful to, while it's fresh in our minds, to go through it. So yeah, I think that would be a good topic to discuss at the next meeting. I also might be, if Anton can do it, maybe there were several very good summary charts that I forget, I think it was Mr. Slay, who kind of went through each of the criteria and I think did a pretty good job of kind of highlighting the specific issues related to tonight's application. So those might be useful to go through again. And yeah, sounds like a good exercise to go through. Yeah. Future agenda item next month. Okay. All right. Anything else? Well, thank you all for hanging in here. And I think we, once again, did some really good work tonight. Really appreciate it. And have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
Night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night. Good luck with Glenn.